Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Friday. Hope everybody is ready for the weekend. And we're back with another episode. You guys know what today is. It's Friday, which means it's the Friday free-for-all mailbag, where the entire show is dedicated to answering your guys' questions that you've gathered up throughout the week about college football, about Notre Dame. Season's coming up. We're 15 days away from week 0 happening. We're less than a month from Notre Dame kicking off their season. So a lot of fun, exciting things happening in the Notre Dame football world. And so today we're taking time out to answer everybody's questions. And so if you want to get yours answered, you can put MB for mailbag or a mailbox emoji prior to your submission. That lets us know to set your question aside. Super chats get bumped up to the top, and not to add any additional pressure to everybody, but you guys have been absolutely killing it. One of the reasons why we love doing this is, it gives Brian and I a little bit more, I guess, free time in the morning because we're not game planning and coming up with the outline for a show,
cards and
going through cards. And you guys have been absolutely killing it, making our lives exceptionally easy this offseason, especially on Friday. So I'm looking forward to this one.
I am too. And we have a super chat to get us started off with today, Trev. So I am ready to rock and roll. You ready to dive into this bad boy?
Always, brother.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. We got a super chat from John Banco.
Appreciate the super chat, John. From an optics standpoint, I feel the SEC needs Oklahoma over Michigan and Texas over Ohio State, or the, quote, superior conference chatter gets real loud. Do you agree?
Sort of. Yeah, I certainly agree with Texas over Ohio State. If your perceived preseason best team gets beat at home by a perceived top 2 to 3 team from the Big Ten, because it's not a consensus that everybody agrees that Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten. Some people think it's Oregon. And there's some people like me, Trev, when we do our preseason top 25, none of you have to guess who my number 1 team is going to be. It's going to be Indiana because you're the champs until somebody beats you kind of guy. But you can't lose at home in that game. The Michigan-Oklahoma one, that one's a little different for me. I do view Oklahoma as superior to Michigan, whereas Texas and Ohio State are sort of on an even plane. You should expect the team that's at home to win that game. That's how I look at it. When all things are equal, the home field should carry the day on that one. Michigan, Oklahoma, not so much. I think it being in Ann Arbor is the only reason it might be close this year. That's kind of how I view it. But it's more so you need Texas to beat Ohio State, and then overall you need to do well in some of those matchups, because there's a couple of those Big Ten versus ACC matchups. Trev, we were putting together a list of games. You and I were talking about the top schedules or top games in college football this year. And there were several games that you and I looked at where we were like, hey man, like there's this kind of sneaky Big Ten versus SEC or Big 12 versus SEC matchup that I'm kind of curious about. And so when you look at the Big Ten and SEC, I think it's Mississippi State, Minnesota, right? I believe is one of those games. So if you win the Texas game and then you lose to Oklahoma, I still think there's some of those other games. That same day Mississippi State plays at Minnesota. If Mississippi State wins at Minnesota, and overall you do well against those other matchups, there's like a lot of matchups between the SEC and the Big 12 this year, which I dig. I like that. So give those Big 12 teams opportunities to play those games. But if you can win most of those games, then I feel like you're in a situation where you can kind of start having some bragging rights. But at the end of the day, all of those bragging rights that Oklahoma beats Michigan, Texas beats Ohio State, Mississippi State beats Minnesota, Arkansas beats Utah, all these things happen. And then you go out in the playoff and get smoked again and can't get any, one team in the semis, and that team gets smoked. And then, once again, it's the Big Ten versus the Big 12 or the Big Ten versus the ACC or the Big Ten versus Notre Dame in the championship game. And then all that stuff you did in week 3, you're going to care about it. Nobody else will. And so I think at the end of the day, I would say the other opposite is true. If Michigan beats Oklahoma and Ohio State beats Texas, and yet it's Notre Dame, Georgia, Texas, and Miami in the semifinals, and guess what? you'll have some bragging rights in that situation, but you're going to need to do well in the postseason, in my opinion, to earn those bragging rights. Because look, the SEC are the ones who set this standard. The SEC is the conference, and their fans are the ones that told us, Trev, for most half of your life, going all the way back to '09, over half your life, that what defines your power as a conference is what you do in the postseason, meaning like who wins championships. That's what you guys told us from like '06 to 2 years ago. It was, well, no. We were the best conference. Look how many championships we won. You guys set that standard. So
Yeah.
if you want to change the standard, then that's fine. Admit that. But at the end of the day, you set the mark. How good you are as a conference is determined by championships. I didn't set that mark. I don't think that's necessarily true, but that's what they did. And so they're going to have to do something in the postseason if they want to start getting credibility, more credibility as being the top league.
Yeah, postseason, absolutely. I agree there. I agree with Texas over Ohio State. I would also say that the SEC has to show a little bit more dominance over the ACC as well. Georgia Tech has played Georgia pretty close the last 2 years. I think Clemson has beat South Carolina, at least I think last year.
2 of the last 3, I believe.
Yeah. 2 of the last 3. I couldn't remember if it was back-to-back or 2 of the last 3. Louisville decimated Kentucky last year. So, there's an argument to make that the ACC is the 4th out of the P4 conferences. And the SEC, who is claiming to be the superior conference, struggles against the ACC. And so I would also add that in as well. But postseason will take the cake, especially from the standard that they propped up for 15 years.
To your point, Clemson's won 2 of the last 3, and Clemson has won 5, 6, 7, 9 of the last 11. If you remember, South Carolina won 2 years ago. Remember they had that kind of like that walk-off type of win, like late in the game. They had that drive at the end of the game and scored to win 17-14. It was an ugly game. But, yeah, you're getting dominated in those rivalries. And now Florida has had some success against Florida State. Like last couple years, I believe. But I mean, before that, it was all Florida State, and when they're beating Florida State, it's like, I mean, you're beating a really bad Florida State team. You're not even beating a good Florida State team.
Speaking of Florida State, I mean, Alabama lost to Florida State last year, so the SEC has to do better against the ACC in general if they want to lay stake to that claim.
Yeah, and prior to the last 2 years, Florida State had won 7-10 in that matchup. So, and to your point, like you said, Florida State beat Alabama last year. So you guys set that standard. You're the ones that told us championships are what matter. So we're just going by what you guys said.
From Adam Garcia, if both were coached equally as well, who would win between the 2024 Notre Dame team against the 2018 team?
If they're both coached equally well, I'd probably lean towards the 2018 team. Probably I'd go towards. I think I think the 2018 team could have made a couple plays on the perimeter if they were coached equally well, meaning Brian Kelly's not the head coach. Ian Book maybe is a little bit more willing to take some chances on the outside to his 6'5" receivers. I think the matchup between the 18 offensive line and the 24 defensive line would have been a good matchup, 2 good solid units. But the matchup between the 2018 D-line and the 2024 offensive line would have been a mismatch. And I think that ultimately would have been what did them in. They would have struggled in a similar fashion to how they struggled against Ohio State in the championship game. That's the comp that I'd make for the front 7 to lat 24. You Aquara, Kareem, Tillery, Dalen Hayes, Adetokunbo Ogundeji, Drew Tranquil, Tavon Coney. Like that team was really good. And I don't know if they'd have been able to throw on that secondary. Honestly, like that was a really good secondary. So I think they would have struggled offensively in a similar fashion to how they struggled against Ohio State in that title game. So if they were all coached equally. Now, I think 24 was a better team than 2018 when you include how they were coached. But if you're saying like what you give them like the same caliber coaching staff and now it's all about the talent, then 2018 to me is the better team.
That 18 receiving core versus the 24 secondary would have been a lot of fun to watch.
Great matchup.
That would have been
Great
so fun.
matchup. That would have been a great matchup.
Oh, if you brought up the other question, my screen is currently frozen. I don't know if you can
Okay.
hear me. But
Yeah, my question is the question is from Adam Garcia. Adam says, why does Notre Dame give a lot more access to national media members than they do their own local media? Okay, y'all just trying to get it started right away. Look, I'll just be honest with you. Notre Dame has no value for the local media. They tolerate us because they feel they have to do that to some degree. But I think part of it is they want to control narratives. It's easier to control narratives with the national media. You're gonna let them see what they want to see. It's not their job to kind of provide critical analysis. They're going to do I don't say fluff pieces, but like the whole point of them coming in there is to kind of put a high spotlight on your team. That's the whole point of them doing that type of access. And with the local media, they have their own YouTube channel, their monetized Twitter pages and things like that. And the more access they give us, the less you need their content, which is fine if they would actually put out a lot of content from their own pages. If they put out the videos, if they put out the more of those things, that'd be awesome. They used to. The Fighting Irish media, 3-4 years ago, was awesome. I mean, they'd put out like highlights of every practice and all these great. I still remember the clip they threw of Tyler Buckner throwing a bomb in camp to Xavier Watts. Remember that when Xavier was still playing receiver? But they've obviously gone away from that and cut back on that, it would seem. But honestly, they don't value us, and they view us as a nuisance. That's how they treat us. Now, if they don't view us that way, that's fine. Then stop treating us that way. And it's not. Look, this isn't going to be liked, but I'm going to speak my mind. I'm allowed to cover the team however I want to cover the team, and I'm allowed to give opinions of things how I give opinions of things. But especially since this directly impacts fans. But it's not just the access. If they didn't want to give us access, that's fine. That's their right. We don't have a right to be at every practice or X number of practices. I think it's good policy because when you cut us out, you cut the fans out since you're not doing your own, volume of content. Granted, look, Miami people are practice every day at Miami. People are at practice all the time at Ohio State. Texas gets a lot of access. It is what it is. Notre Dame wants to be stingy with it. They have a right to do that, whether I think it's the right decision or not. But it's the manner in which they show contempt and disrespect for us and how they communicate and how they some people there are great. There's a girl there that works there named Sarah who worked with me to get the coaches set up. She set up time. She got them on the phone. We did the interview. I said, hey, can I get one more? I'd gone past my time. We got 15 minutes. I'd gone past my time. I said, can I get one more? She was like, cool, get one more. So there are some people there that are cool, but there's also some people there that Trevin, you've experienced this firsthand. I won't put you on the spot, but that just are disrespectful in how they treat us on a daily basis. They treat us like we're nothing. And that tells me everything I need to know, because if you're going to treat us this way, there's no way you would talk to Heather Dinich that way when she visits. There's no way you would talk to Pete Thamel that way. There's no way you're going to talk to Todd Blackledge when he visited campus. But you talk to us like that, like it's nothing, like it's just normal. We should just sit back and take it. And they know they can, because they know that if we raise a fuss, they can just, their response would be, we're just going to give you less access then. We're going to take your credential away. And so like that's just kind of how they are. And, it's unfortunate that an institution like Notre Dame doesn't value that part of it more, but that's the facts. People don't like it. But here's, at the end of the day, you know why they're that way? Because fans let them. Because you guys don't get upset about it. You guys don't demand more access. You guys don't demand more videos, more stuff from the team. You guys don't demand, autograph sessions and things like that. You guys are okay with Notre Dame, pooing on you. And so if you don't care, you'll gladly pay the money that they, I love it. You can't say you care about fans and then put out a tweet saying, hey, this game is sold out. To buy tickets, go to this ticket broker. What? You didn't sell out the game. You sold off a bunch of tickets to a ticket broker who's then going to gouge fans for prices. So there's just a lot of things that say that. And honestly, I'm kind of done talking about it. I only bring it up now because you asked about it, because what I've learned is I'm fighting a fight for me at this point in time, because most fans don't seem to care. I mean, I get pushback all the time on Twitter. I get pushback all the time on our message board from people like, well, justifying why Notre Dame. Well, maybe there's okay, fine. You guys are okay with it, then what am I talking about? You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But it's unfortunate. I just look. You can cut my access down however you want, but there still should be a level of you should treat us with the respect that you want us to treat you with, and I don't think that's asking too much. But
No.
and the other part is the national media can do more for Notre Dame than we can. If I go write an awesome story about Marcus Freeman, that's going to get a pretty good amount of visuals in the Notre Dame world, but it's not going to come close to where Heather Dinich is on campus and gets to access and write something. You know what I mean? So like, there's also a practical element to, well, this is why they should give the national media certain access that maybe we don't have, because they can amplify the message greater. And that's fine, but like my thing is do both though. Do both. So I don't have an issue with a national media getting access. I have an issue with certain national media people getting access, but in theory it makes sense. If I was running their comms team, I would absolutely try to do more to get sporting news and ESPN and CBS Sports and different big name people and on campus, because they have so much more reach. Marcus Freeman going on with Josh Pate is going to get him in front of way more eyes than Marcus Freeman coming on Irish Breakdown. That's facts. I mean, it's reality. That's okay. So it's just, but why not do both?
Yeah.
Especially since I've seen him go on national channels that have way less numbers than we do, but they're national. They're not ours. And so that's kind of part of it.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. It's definitely an and conversation. It shouldn't be an or. I'm with you.
Exactly. National media can do very good things for you, but so can we if you'd let us and stop treating us like we're an adversary.
From John A1, ranking pound for pound, your top 5 Notre Dame players on the 26 roster with the strongest hands. Punch.
Oh, well, I mean, look, you got to put Francis Brew on there.
Yeah.
That's one. Look, in no order, this is just off the top of my head. This would be mine. It'd be probably Francis Brew. It'd be Gerby Lambert, Anthony Knapp would both be on there. James Flanagan. And I mean, honestly, I'm leaning towards like Cole Mullins.
Yeah.
Just like, you talk about pound for pound, like strongest hands, that just from what we see, that'd probably be my top 5. And there'd be guys like Tion Gray has shown me something there. Jason Onye's got a little something to him. But yeah, that'd probably be my top 5. Just strongest hands. Francis Screw's got really strong hands. Cole Mullins has really strong hands. So does Gerby and Anthony Knapp. So yeah, those would be mine. Be mine.
I agree.
Yeah. That'd be fun if there was like a way to measure that. It'd be kind of fun to see that. Got another one from John A1.
Which player on the current roster understands and utilizes their length the best?
Ooh, good question. Boubacar Traore is the one on defense that most. I mean, he understands if I want to get a bull rush, he understands I got to get under and I got to get my arms. And if I can get my arms on that guy and lock him out, he is toast.
Yeah.
Boubacar's got a really nice. And if he can then expand the rest of his game, which we're kind of seeing, the rest of his moves, that move becomes more effective as well. The others, I'd say Gerby Lambert is another one that really understands using his length to his advantage as a tackle. I think that's another one that shows a very good understanding of that. I mean, the guy that uses his length pretty well on offense as a skill position is Jaden Greathouse. That's partly why Jaden is effective in a contested catches. He's got good timing. He is a very good leaper. Not so much like height is not necessarily the greatest thing or the most important thing for a receiver from a vertical standpoint. I always laugh when you like these guys are like 40-inch vertical jumps and they're like 2 of 12 on contested catches, because if you don't know when to jump, it doesn't matter how high you can jump. If you jump last, because that guy's always going to be on top of you. It's the guy that knows when to jump and shows and to be a quick jumper. He can explode vertically. without having to gather and do a lot, and has great body control. And Jaden Greathouse, all of those things, but he also has pretty good length for his size as well, and he knows how to use it. So there's no question about that. Like body positioning and then being able to use his length to get to the outside, those things he does very well. Very
Yeah.
well.
I'd probably say a couple others on defense that came to mind. I think Kingston uses his length really well. I think that's one of the reasons why he's a pretty good pass rusher in certain packages. And I think Breontae Johnson also does a good job of using his length on the back end too. Like there's things that he was able to make up for last year, and he could be slightly out of position, but he's just such a long, rangy player that it works out for him. So I'm with you.
Leonard Moore does as well, but Leonard Moore uses his in coverage.
Yeah.
So the ball never comes. And that's where he uses his length really well. Good question.
From Patrick Earwood, just straight yes or no. Will these coaches be fired come season end? Mike Norvell.
So first of all, I hate yes or no questions. Like, do not care at all our reasoning why. So fine, we'll give you yes or no. So let's go. Mike Norvell.
Yes.
No.
Dave Aranda.
Yes.
Mike Loxley.
Yes.
Also yes. Luke Fickle.
No.
Agreed. Shane Beamer.
No.
And then Bill O'Brien.
Yes. We could have some very interesting conversations as to why I think some of those, Trev, but we were just asked for a yes or no question. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next one.
Heard that. From Salty Virginia Peanuts. Is Ohio State's biggest question the offensive line? In the last 2 seasons, they had a tremendous line, followed by one that got them beat the last 2 games. Which one shows up this year?
Well, I don't necessarily agree that they had a tremendous line last year. I think there were still a lot of moving parts, and I think they were solid. I think that part of the issue the offensive line had last year wasn't so much the line as much as it was a game plan that made it a lot easier to go at that line. I mean, I think that's kind of part of it as well. It was very easy to kind of know what Ohio State was doing last year. And I don't care how good you are up front, if the other team knows what you're doing, unless you're like 2017 Notre Dame, it kind of doesn't matter. And even 2017 Notre Dame, when they played Georgia, Georgia could make it more difficult. So that's kind of where I'm at, Trev, on that one. I don't think their biggest question is their offensive line. I don't think their offense is going to be as big of a question as people think it's going to be this year. I think their offense is going to be pretty good. I think their biggest question on offense is the offensive coordinator and what he's going to do.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a very, very solid offensive line at Ohio State. The receiving core is still going to be good. The question isn't, is it going to be good? Is it going to be as good as it's been? So that's kind of where I'm kind of at on that. But I think their biggest question is their D line and their offensive line coach or offensive coordinator. Excuse me.
Yeah, Salty. That'd be my question. And honestly, if I was going to pick biggest question between the lines, I'd probably say their defensive line. They've lost a lot of personnel the last 2 years, and I got to see them kind of take a step forward. Guys like Kenyatta Jackson, is he ready to step up into that spotlight? Whereas I kind of know what to expect from Carson Hinsman and Luke Montgomery and Austin Saraveld. So given a choice between the 2 lines, I'd probably say defense. But in short, no, I don't think their biggest question is the offensive line.
I'm a big fan of continuity being effective, being something important on the offensive line. And I think this is going to be the most continuity they've had from year to year.
Yeah.
On the offensive line. I think that's going to benefit them. I had a super chat from Irish for Life 99. Will there be an IB meetup for the Wisconsin game? I know there was some talk of an IB RV trip. That wasn't me. That was Sean and Vince talking about that. So I didn't have anything to do with that. But I don't think that's going to work out. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't have anything planned. Honestly, if there's something to do and somebody has some ideas, shoot me some ideas. I'm open, but I haven't planned anything for that. So, but thank you for asking. Appreciate you.
From Patrick Earwood, what is a nice surprise to Elijah Hughes on the freaks list? Does this really shed a light on our D tackle room?
I don't think so. Because there's a lot of guys on that list that are just freaks in the weight room. They're not necessarily really good football players.
Yeah.
Some of them are. But I mean, I'll say this, Patrick, to a degree. Yeah, I think the fact that your 5th or 6th defensive lineman is a guy that is performing very well in the strength program and things like that. Yeah, no, I think that says something about the D line. It big picture, being on the freaks list doesn't necessarily mean that you're a really good football player, but I think in this instance it does. So context wise, I think it says something for Notre Dame. It doesn't always mean something on the freaks list, but in this particular instance, I do think that it means something. I do think it shows like, dude, that you're not talking because you had two, right? Yeah, or no, they have three D linemen on there, correct? Wasn't it Knapp and then Bryce Young, Francis Brew, and
Yep, Elijah Hughes. Yes,
Elijah
sir.
Hughes, right? So three of your four were defensive linemen. So I think in this case it does. There's some guys I've seen mentioned on there. I'm like, that guy's not a very good football player. He may be a physical freak, but he's not a really good football player. We know Elijah Hughes is a good football player. We know that Bryce Young and Francis Brew, to varying degrees, are good football players from either proven, standpoint or a flashy potential standpoint. So I do think it says something about their D tackle room and their D line as a whole.
Yeah.
Because what was one of the first things people said to you? Where's Boubacar on this? And so there's other guys. People are like, why isn't this guy on there? And there's already three. And I think that says something about the D line.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to your point, what it says is if the number 6 defensive tackle on here is on the freaks list, how good are the other 5 in front of them? I think that's the picture that it paints. Another one from Salty is Oregon's biggest question, whether they can win the CFP. The last 2 seasons, they played a top team well, then got killed by the same team later in the season's college football playoff. Can they just do it?
No, I don't think that's the thing. Look, I don't think Oregon had like the best roster in college football and then got beat by some inferior opponent. And we're like, how did that happen? I think Ohio State was better than them in 24, and I think Indiana was better than they were last year. I don't think in either case they had the better team. I think the argument now where I think that comes from, because I do think they had a better team than Washington in 2023, and they got beat twice by Washington. So then that stigma kind of builds, and then you lose those rematches again, and I think that kind of gets into it. But I don't think Oregon's had a team in the last couple of years where I felt they were the favorite to win it all. Look, we said in 2024, if Ohio State plays to their potential, that's the best team in college football. They didn't play to their potential in the regular season. And they didn't play very well against Oregon and still almost won that game. That was kind of our thing, because I think we both predicted Ohio State to win that game. I didn't see it coming like it is. I think that's kind of the concern. It's not even just that they lose, but to Salty's point, they get crushed in those games. So I don't think it's like, can they just do it? I think it's, do they have the mental toughness to perform on that stage? I think it's bigger than that. And I think they're getting to the point where I think this could be their most complete roster of the last 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
They were like great on offense, but not great on defense. And they were maybe great at this position on defense, but not at this position on defense. I think this might be their most complete team, roster-wise. Assuming a couple things like Fox Crater's legit at left tackle, Michael Bennett can handle the transition going from, the Ivy League to Power 4 and all that kind of stuff. But, they need some health. I think their receiver depth chart is a position where they can't afford to do what happened again last year, where they have a bunch of injuries, because that's what hurt them last year. They didn't have enough horses to really go do what they needed to do in some of those games, because they didn't have Evan Stewart, and Gary Bryant was banged up a lot. Corey Moore was just a freshman. They don't have Notre Dame's depth at receiver. What I think they have potentially is maybe a guy that at number 1 or 2 you could argue are better than Notre Dame's 1 or 2, and they have a legit pass catcher at tight end where Notre Dame, we don't know that Notre Dame does, but I think that's the thing that you could argue for Oregon is that. But if they don't have Notre Dame's depth at receiver, in my opinion, and that's why I think there's a little bit of a smaller march for error at a couple positions. But I think this is their most complete team. So I think we are in the, can they actually step up in the big moment, Salty? I think that's a fair thing to say about this team. But I don't know that the last couple teams, them losing wasn't the issue. It was the way they lost. That, to me, was the issue. They didn't even compete. I mean, those games were both over by halftime.
Yeah, Oregon has been a very weird team to evaluate the last 2 years. Similar to Notre Dame, they're one of the favorites on FanDuel to win the title this year, and there's been a lot of pushback on that because it's like, well, what have they done? It's like, well, on one hand, they went undefeated their first year in the Big Ten, won the conference, but then got bounced emphatically in both years. But then the only teams that they've lost to the last 2 years, regular season and postseason combined, are the national champions. Yeah, so like they're just such an odd team, but I agree with everything that you said. I think that Oregon is in a spot where as long as they can prepare and rise to the occasion in the biggest moment, that would probably be their biggest question alongside how do you replace both of the coordinators that you lost. But yeah, I don't know if the biggest question is just can they win the playoffs? Because then you'd be, I mean, would that be Miami's biggest question, Notre Dame's biggest
Right.
question? I mean,
And
that's
it's the reasons why they can't win that are more
yes,
important than just this broad, like, voodoo curse type of they can't win type of thing.
right.
I think that's now identifying what those things are.
Super chat from Chicago Irish. Appreciate the super chat. Have you heard anything on Jagasaw and as to when he will be back practicing? Also, any chance Craig moves to guard if Joe Otting is playing well?
No, we haven't heard anything on Jagasol, guys. I promise you, if we hear anything that's legitimate, we'll tell you. But no, we haven't heard anything. Look, with Joe Rudolph, I don't put anything past Joe Rudolph. Should that be considered? No. Will it be considered? I don't know. With Joe Rudolph, who knows? Why did Joe Rudolph spend all of 2024 fall camp moving Rocco Spindler and Pat Coogan from position to position to position every day, allowing them to go no continuity, and then you're like, oh well, man, Sullivan or Sam Pendleton's way more consistent. Yeah, because he's playing the same position every day. I just feel like he's one of those guys that just can't handle contentment. Meaning like, hey, I got a pretty good offensive line right now. Coach him up. He's always got to experiment and move this guy and move that guy. He has made terrible personnel decisions every year of his tenure at Notre Dame. Every year. That's been arguably the biggest concern I've had with him. We thought going into fall camp that, hey, you've got it kind of figured out. But who knows? After his most recent comment, who knows? I wouldn't put anything logically. I'd say no. There's no reason to do that. Why would you move Ashton Craig to guard, put Joe Otting at center, and bench Sullivan Absher unless he's playing poorly? Which I don't know. I mean, maybe he only plays well when we're there, and then he's terrible all the other times. I don't know. But a guy who's proven to be a very good pass blocker. Yeah, he's got to get better in the run game. But you're going to move him for a guy that, to me, was not as good as of a player as him last year. I don't think Joe Otting outplayed Sullivan Absher last year. I think they were very comparable. And then you're going to put a guy who has never played more than 3 games in a season before getting hurt into this. No, that's not fair. He played 6 last year before getting hurt into the starting lineup. No, I just doesn't make sense to me. But there's a lot of things that Joe Rudolph has done personnel wise don't make sense to me. So anything is possible with him. Anything.
Yeah, the thing that makes me nervous about that is I feel like Joe Rudolph is putting the offensive line in a position to be like jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he is in a spot where he's like, man, it's cool to say that I got 3 linemen that can play 5 different positions. Like, well, hey, how about you let 5 different linemen get really good at their position?
Yeah.
And see where that takes you. That's the jack of all trades, master of none is the risk you run by shuffling the offensive line on a week to week basis.
Yep. In the NFL, I get it. With a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, it makes no sense. But
agreed.
It is what it is. He's the coach, not me. So maybe his 4th opportunity to put a real championship caliber offensive line might be the year he finally does it.
From Patrick Earwood, including Notre Dame, what are some potential rematches that we could see in the playoffs that might be better than when the teams met in the regular season?
Texas, Ohio State, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think Notre Dame, Miami would be better in the postseason. I think the regular season game will be an epic matchup, and I don't think the rematches tend to not go well if the first game was really competitive. I mean, we've seen that. Oregon the last 2 years, competitive game against Indiana this year. Indiana was clearly better. But rematch is a blowout. Ohio State, Oregon in 2024, rematch is a blowout. Ole Miss, Georgia was a good game both times this past year. I would say that the first game was probably better than the second one. But Texas, Ohio State could be one. Oregon, Ohio State could be one. Ohio State, Indiana could be one. Notre Dame, Miami, potentially. I've seen some brackets that have Notre Dame and BYU slated to potentially play in the playoff in a rematch. Alabama, Georgia is always a potential for there to be a rematch there. I think there's a lot of those type of matchups, Patrick, that I would look at and say we could potentially see something like that in a rematch scenario. But I think the Texas Ohio State one would probably be the best because it's happening so early in the regular season. Both teams will be a lot better by the time they get to play each other in the postseason, most likely. Now, there could be injuries and things like that, but most likely that's the case.
Yep, I agree. We have the same list there, but there is a chance that you could see some good ones. I'm with you, bro.
I want to get to some here. Try to get a couple people we haven't got yet. So for now, here we go. Coming from Broke Neck Boy.
If I had to describe the 2016 season with one play, it would be Kaiser giving a jet sweep to Malik against Duke.
Oh, I don't even remember that. Yeah, I don't even remember that. Oh God, that here was so bad. If I could describe it in one play, it would be going up on Duke 14-0. I think it was 14-0. And then their backup kick returner houses the next kick. And then that was kind of the season was never the same after that. I think it was 14-0. Just let me look that up real quick. But do you remember that, Trev? Duke had a really good kick returner, but he was injured
Yeah, I remember
in that game. And Notre Dame went up, yes, 14-0. Kevin Stepherson, 44-yard touchdown pass. It's 14-0. And then Notre Dame allows Duke to return the next kickoff 96 yards for a touchdown to their backup kick returner. And then Notre Dame goes 3 and out, and then Duke goes and scores a touchdown to tie it. And then the season was never the same. It's never the same after that. So yeah, that'd be mine.
Pick one of the plays from NC State. Just playing in a monsoon,
Throwing all the time in that game. Yeah.
Any one of the pass plays from NC State, honestly, it would sum up the 2016 season.
Yeah.
From Insured by Big, resident LSU fan in the chat, who is this year's Penn State?
So let's set the terms for what this year's Penn State would mean. So we're talking about what, let's say a preseason top 10 team, Trev. That ends up being really bad and unranked. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I'd say a preseason top 10 team that ends up unranked that had like championship aspirations.
I don't know that there's that. Like the championship aspirations one, to me, I don't think there is one. Because here's who I think has championship aspirations: Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Indiana, Miami. That's it. Who else would you throw into that conversation? And I don't think any of those teams have a Penn State type of season. Yeah. So now if you take just the first two criteria, top 10 team that could, fall out, then you've got Texas A&M would be a potential candidate for me. And then Ole Miss would be the other. I could see those two teams really struggling. And Oklahoma is an interesting team, Trev, because I really like this Oklahoma team, but I could also see them having a couple bad losses early and then just kind of falling apart. Because that's what happened to Penn State. They had that really bad loss after the Oregon game because they put so much into the Oregon game and they just didn't show up the next week. And it just snowballed. So like, does Oklahoma put a lot into that Michigan game and the Michigan game doesn't go the way they hope? They don't win the game. They lose in a heartbreaking fashion. And, similar to Penn State, Penn State's putting a drive together, trying to go win the game. They blew a lead and they'd run a wheel route into the shorts. They motion a third guy into the boundary to run a wheel route. It gets picked off. Terrible play call. And you falter. I mean, so let's say something like that happens to Georgia Oklahoma, and they lose that second game to Michigan, and then they don't bounce back, and then all of a sudden, they're 2-1, they beat New Mexico, and then they get smacked by Georgia, they get smacked by Texas. Next thing you know, they're 2-3, and that team just quits. They lose at Mississippi State, they lose at Florida, they lose at Ole Miss, they get upset at home by South Carolina or Ole Miss or Texas A&M, and all of a sudden a promising season just falls apart. That's a team that I could see that happen to because of the way that their schedule is structured. I feel the same way about Ole Miss. Ole Miss is, feeling all good about themselves and they're going to be a good team. They're going to be back in the playoff. And then they just come out in week 1 and then lose to Louisville on a neutral field. And then 2 weeks later, their old head coach comes back into town and whoops them. And all of a sudden that team just quits. Because that's what happened to Penn State. They basically just quit. And Ole Miss is the other one. Now, listen, I'm not saying, Big, that none of the teams that I mentioned as championship contenders can't do that, because I wouldn't have guessed that from Penn State last year. If you'd have told me Penn State's going to go 6-6 and they're going to lose to, going to start off 3-0, get beat in a close game to Oregon, and then just fall apart, lose to UCLA, lose to Northwestern, and then they're going to fire James Franklin, I would have been like, stay off drugs. It's not good for you. That's damaging to your body. It's not good for your family. It's not good. Like, you're out of your mind to think that. But that's exactly what happened, which is why I've had to rethink, like, how hard do you really want to push back on a prognosis like that? Because I did the same thing with D. Trollhunter 2 years. Like, dude, come on. Florida State's not going to start 0-2. Like, they're not, or 0-3 or whatever it was. And he was dead set all offseason. Florida State's going to struggle. They're going to start off with multiple losses. And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? And he was spot on. He saw it. I didn't see it. And so, I just, but I don't know who that is. I don't see it. I'm not going to say that you'd be wrong, Trev, if there's a top 6 or 7 team that you think that could happen to, because I'm like, well, okay. I would have said you were nuts if you'd have said that about Penn State last year, and that's exactly what happened. But I just can't. I can't think of a scenario where my top 6 or 7 teams have that type of fall off. I just can't. But some of those on the fringe teams, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, A&M, I could see them having something like that happen to them.
Outside of those top 6, 7 teams that you mentioned, I'm going to go Texas Tech. I could see a world where they drop a game against Houston on the road early. They had all the quarterback drama in the preseason. They were expected to win the champion or their conference championship. So I could see Texas Tech being potentially that Penn State team this year. Of the top 6 teams, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go Indiana if I had to guess one. I don't see it happening to Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State. I've never really seen like a Georgia team quit on Kirby Smart. Not that I think that Kurt Cignetti's team would quit on him either. But it's just now their portal class looks more like a traditional portal class. It's not the group of it's not the G5 kids coming up that kind of have something to prove. So I could see them getting hit in the mouth, and guys like a Nick Marsh, kind of getting his feelings a little bit, or if Josh Burnham isn't rotating in to the degree that he might think that he might, something like that. Now, I don't think either of those things will happen for either of those players. Not an indictment on Josh Burnham or Nick Marsh, but there's a world where something like that could happen.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Texas Tech's another interesting one that you said, Trevor. That's one of those ones where all the distractions could catch up to them. That's a good one. But I guess with them, I don't look at them as like real contenders, title contenders.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of
Very
my
true.
thing. Yeah. But but a lot of people think they are. I mean, they're a consensus playoff team. So yeah, that's interesting. And that was the same question from MC2737. So we appreciate you. We just wanted to bring that up so you could get a little shout out, since both you guys had the same question. It was a good question. Going from Brandon Gilbert.
To make baseball more interesting, if the bases are clear or if a man is on second, the batter, if he makes contact, can reverse the bases, run clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Thoughts?
No. When it comes to baseball, Brandon, I'm a traditionalist. I wish that baseball would get back to being what baseball was. It's never going to happen, I don't think. But, yeah, I mean, it's no different than some of the other dumb things they've done in baseball. You know what I mean? Like, I think baseball was a beautiful sport when it was done correctly. They screwed themselves over because they lost an entire generation of fans when they canceled the World Series in '94. My dad, Trev, growing up, man, my dad was the biggest baseball fan ever. He loved baseball. We'd listen to Reds games on 700 WLW. I'd keep box scores. Me and my dad would be sitting at home listening to the game because they weren't on TV. Games weren't on TV a lot back then. You just got some weekend games. And but like we'd be sitting at home listening to the game on the radio. I'd be keeping the box score as like a 6, 7, 8 year old, and we'd go to Reds games whenever we could and drive the 2.5 hours to go down there. And we were big Reds fans. Still remember celebrating the 1990 World Series with my dad, watching the Reds sweep the A's. And I don't think he's ever watched a baseball game again since they locked out the World Series. That's just one of those things you just don't do. You want to lock out preseason. Look, in the 80s, we had like 2 strikes in the 80s in the NFL, but they were things that cost us the first couple games. There were seasons they only played 12, 13 games, and they seasons they had started off with scabs and stuff like that. And people didn't like that, but you still played the Super Bowl. You still played the playoffs. You didn't cancel the World Series. And I think a generation of fans, like the true fans, a lot of the true fans said, no, never again. And so then they started getting people back with the home run ball, and those weren't true fans. And the sport's never recovered because now everything has been chasing the home run ball and the flashy stuff, as opposed to just the no longer appreciating what makes the sport beautiful and makes the sport unique. And now they're talking about a potential another lockout and all this other kind of stuff. And so I what you're trying to do, Brandon, is you're trying to say, how do we get the younger generation to be in love with our sport again? And I honestly don't know. I don't know how they do that. I don't. So I guess this is as good as any. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, this would be a no from me too, Brandon. I've not been shy around the fact I'm not like the biggest baseball fan. Played it a lot growing up, loved playing it. But from a playing sample, I just don't know what this would do for you if this became a rule. Like, I mean, if it were up to me, I would hit a single and then just sit on third. And then if another base runner got on, then I guess I would just run home, I suppose. But I don't really know what this would accomplish. So if it were buy, sell, hold, I would sell it.
Yeah.
Got the Friday free for all mailbag here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Full show dedicated to answering our daily listeners' questions. You guys have been bringing the heat so far today.
Yep, very good stuff.
From Irish Dragon 23, Brian, has your evaluation of the Biaggi hire changed? When hired, I perceived your reaction to be more of a head scratcher, but hopeful hire.
I wouldn't call it a head scratcher, but hopeful. I'd say I thought there were better candidates for the job, but I hope it works out. And look, with Biaggi, in some ways it's worked out well. Notre Dame is a very creative special teams. I don't know that there's a more creative special teams in college football than Notre Dame. With some of the different fakes and different things they've done, they've scored touchdowns and they've had some huge moments in big games. You think of the fake that they did against Georgia in the playoff, and Kirby Smart was so moved by that he went out and copied it and did it in 20. Was it Mississippi State? He did it against last year, I think. He copied a lot of things. There's not a more creative special teams coach in college football right now than Marty Biaggi. Having said that, I would sacrifice that creativity for the ability to make kicks consistently, punt consistently, and cover kicks consistently. And they don't do that. They're very inconsistent in coverage. The fact that we wasted a whole year of James Rendell rugby punting when we could have got somewhat of what we got last year. Maybe he wouldn't have been quite as good. Like that's a coaching problem. The fact that you're evaluating, like I don't fault him for the Mitch Jeter thing. That's not his fault. Mitch Jeter was a great evaluation, and when Mitch Jeter was healthy, he was a very good kicker. The Noah Burnett evaluation was not a good one. And then obviously the injury issues, and there's other things that I think kind of play into that, where I'd rather get good at that stuff and be good at covering kicks and punts. Field position is very, very important to me. I'd be willing to sacrifice that. Now, ideally, you get better at those areas and you can still maintain those things. And that's what I'm hopeful for with Coach Biaggi. So, because he's done the things he does well, he does very well. Very well. It's just some of those basic things they don't do well, and I'd like to see them get better at those things.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it's an and, not an or. It's you are creative on special teams and you put together a competent place kicking operation. But I said this last year after the Boston College game. I would trade every fake punt, every cool trick play, every kickoff return for a touchdown for just an operation that allowed you to make extra points and field goals. And that's what I want above all else.
All right, good stuff. Let's get to Bobby S.
Who has been the biggest camp riser for you so far in fall camp? And is there anyone you've seen or heard behind the scenes that you need to see more from?
Bobby, we saw one full practice, and that was the first practice with no pads on. Since then, we've watched this team stretch, go through special teams, and then basically watch linemen go through drills. That's about it. So there's not a lot we can really gauge from that where I would say definitively this guy is good. So, for example, one guy that I would say to answer your question is Owen Strebig. I've really liked what I've seen from Owen Strebig moving around and drills, and he's bigger, he's stronger. But for all I know, he's going out there and he can't block anybody. I have no idea because we're not at practice,
Right.
and they don't put anything out, and we don't get to see those things. So, but if I were to try to give you an answer, and I want to try to give you that, would be one. I've liked what I've seen from him. I have heard a couple of the freshman offensive linemen have really impressed so far in fall camp. That's something that I've heard so far. I've heard that Bryce Young is having a very good fall camp so far. I haven't seen it. So that it's kind of hard to really answer your question with what little we've seen. And I'm not complaining about it. That's just trying to be honest about, it's really hard to see that. And as far as, behind the scenes, we're still just a week into practice. It's too early for me I know you guys are desperate for info, but I'm just telling you, I coached football for 7 years. I played college football for 4 years, and I've been covering Notre Dame for 15 years. You don't know who you are as a football team a week into fall camp. Not entirely. Give it another week and a half, and then you'll have a much better sense of it. And that's when some of these questions will be more meaningful. So I just maybe ask this next week, and I might have a different answer for you.
From Irish Dragon, are there any recruits on Notre Dame's radar that has had a Leonard Moore-like undersell? Moore was a 3-star out of high school, but is balling like a 5-star. Anyone you perceive that could be similar?
Well, not everybody had Leonard Moore as a 3-star. I believe Rivals had him as a ranked 4-star player. I believe I did as well, but let me see here real quick. But others, On 3 had him as a 3-star. 247 had him as a 3-star. Rivals had him as a 4-star, the number 228 player in the country. Everybody else had him as a 3-star. Guy like that for Notre Dame in 2027. Champ Mons being a 3-star is absurd. And I think he's a 3-star by 2 outlets, I believe, Trev. I know 247 has him as a 3-star, which I think is hilariously bad. ESPN and Rivals both have him as a 4-star. So don't know that I can really pick him because there are at least 2 of the outlets. Now, I would say that he's still very much undervalued as a recruit. I would have said Richie Flanagan, but he's starting to get some love. Richie's starting to get some love. He's now ranked, I think, by 2 of the servers. He's now a composite 4-star player. Shocker, 247 is the one that has him as a 3-star. But he's now the number 186 player in the country by Rivals. ESPN doesn't have him in their ESPN 300, but he was relatively recently was in one of their ESPN 300. So I think they like Richie. Now there's guys like, here's one. I don't think he's going to be Leonard Moore, but of the players in the class now, that if there was a 3-star that like a consensus 3-star that's going to prove people wrong, it'd be John Gay III. Another DB. I really like John Gay III. I don't view him as with Leonard Moore's upside because remember, I had Leonard as a top 150 recruit. I undersold him as well. I had him as a top 150 recruit. Loved his pickup. Loved his upside. Had him as a 4.5-star upside guy. But he was hurt a lot of his senior year, and so I was like, I couldn't reevaluate him. And I wrote at one point in time, can't remember where I wrote this, but like on the board, I might have been on the Sunday article that if I'd have seen him play as a senior, I felt like he was a guy that was going to jump up into 5-star upside status because he had great speed and length and that type of thing. John Gay doesn't necessarily have that total package, but I could see him being a guy that ends up being a much better player than people think. Much better player, like multi-year starter type of talent. He would be one. Jackson Coleman is one that I'm intrigued by. I just want to see his senior year. But Jackson Coleman's a kid that I'm very intrigued by. That length and that speed is very intriguing. And look, two of the hottest recruiting teams in the country were battling to get him, Oregon and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And that should tell you something. They didn't go steal him from Colorado or steal him from Arizona, some solid team that loves finding it. I mean, it was them and Oregon were the two teams battling for him. That says a little something to me. But I need to see just a little more film of his senior year before I'm ready to completely jump on that bandwagon for him. But that would be the other one that I'd look at.
Good deal. From Brandon Gilbert, if you could be Knight Rider, which coach would you, besides Marcus Freeman, choose for Kit?
That is the most creative question I've ever been asked. Who would I want as the voice of Kit is basically what he's asking. Oh my goodness. That is go give it, because I'm thinking
Charlie Partridge.
Yeah.
Like
okay,
that dude. I mean, yeah. Mine
that's a good one.
Partridge.
Him or Brian Jean Marie, one of those two, would be mine. Yeah, it's a good one, Trev. That's really good, Brandon.
From T-Bone75, huge fan of the show. I might have missed it previously, but was curious why BD got out of coaching. Go Irish.
Well, T-Bone, I got out of coaching initially after 2005. I went through a personal tragedy that I didn't handle well. My best friend was murdered on a night where we were supposed to hang out, and I didn't feel like hanging out. And whenever we hung out where I lived. We didn't hang out where he lived. He lived in downtown Norfolk, in a part of the Norfolk that don't really go to if you don't have to. And I didn't feel like it. And, I was kind of struggling with some of my own things at the time. And I was like, hey, man, let's not hang out. And that night, somebody broke into his house and shot him and killed him. And I just dealt with a lot of guilt over that for a long time. Like, it was my fault. Like, if I would have been there for him, if I was a real friend, maybe I could have been there for him. And so I went through a real dark time when Travis was killed, and kind of lost a lot of purpose. And so I stopped pursuing coaching jobs and went to a very dark place personally and emotionally. And fortunately, from that, I found salvation in Jesus Christ, and that really changed my life. And then a year after that, I met Angela and got married. And, God has been working a lot of amazing things in my life since then. And it's not, this had to happen for me to do that. No, it's, I hit rock bottom, and I was actually looking to blame God for it. And instead of blaming God for it, I found out that was my only salvation out of it. And I've been very blessed since. And then I got back into coaching in 2012. A friend of mine who was in the coaching business helped me get the job. He's actually coaching Notre Dame at the time. He's now at Michigan, but he helped me get back into coaching because I still had that beast inside of me a little bit. And I coached for 2 years, and I remembered some of the things I hated about coaching, the politics. You had to, whose butt you kissed and all this, and it was hard on Angela because she didn't sign up to be a coach's wife. Like, when we met, she didn't know she was going to get in it, and she was a great coach's wife. I mean, I still remember the first time she fed the receivers. I was like, baby, that's not enough food. She's like, yes, it is. They're a bunch of 185-pound receivers. I was like, they're still teenage boys. That's not enough food. Trev, they didn't make it through one group of all the players going through, and we were out of food. And so she's running out to the freezer we had out in the garage. And she's getting more food and heating stuff up. Never made that mistake again. She was a great coach's wife, but it was hard on her not being home a lot. D3, you're on the road for months at a time, where you're living out of hotels for a couple months. And she didn't sign up for that. She's in Defiance, Ohio, away from her family. Her family's in Colorado and New York and Florida and all this kind of stuff. And it was hard on her. And so we got back in. I left after 2013, got back into this, and I've been committed to this ever since. But that's why I got out of coaching. Honestly, had I not gone through that, I probably would have stayed in coaching. And And I don't know where I'd be right now, but I probably wouldn't be married to Angela, and I definitely wouldn't be doing this. So sometimes, you know, things happen for a reason, and you make the most out of it. I'm not someone who believes that God does this so that you can do that. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. I think God is with us all the time. I don't think he's like manipulating us all like puppets to do certain things, but when you show faith in him and you follow him, that he can bring you out of dark times, and that's what it was for me. And then all of this has come from it. So I've been very fortunate, very blessed, and I've also worked very hard and applied a lot of the lessons that I learned as a coach into this business and into life. And it's been it's been good. Yeah. Somebody said, was I at seminary? Yeah. So one of the things I was going to do is I was going to become a campus. I was going to get involved in campus ministry because I do love working with young people. I do love working with the college age kids. And I realized in my second year, certainly I don't have the temperament for ministry. I don't have that's just not my calling. And then of course this opportunity arose to come do this. And so it's worked out really well. But yeah, that's why I got out of coaching. So appreciate you asking.
From Adam Garcia, what are your thoughts on the Jaden Daniels LSU situation?
I shared mine yesterday, Trev. If you want to go ahead and give yours, you can go ahead and give yours. And
yeah, I mean, it's plain and simple for me. Grow up. I mean, you won the Heisman Trophy at LSU, but respectfully, you're not that dude. You went 9-3. Now we can have a conversation on if that was his fault or not. Now I would argue, and I said this to you yesterday on the phone. Jaden Daniels in 2023 at LSU was basically what Jimmy Clausen was to Notre Dame in 2009. You remove either of those players on that team, they're not even bowl eligible. But something over a number, that's a little bit much for me. I mean, outside of you winning the Heisman, which, let's be real here, is a personal achievement, I don't know what you did for the program. I mean, you were the second Heisman Trophy winner in 3-4 years there, I suppose, which is an accomplishment for the program. But then you want LSU to stop using your name in promotionals and stuff like that. So it's not even like you care about what it does for the program. So I just think it's silly. I just think it's another thing of storyline to help get us through the offseason until football is back on our TVs. Like I think it's just a bunch of silliness.
Yeah, it's spot on. And yes, the Heisman Trophy is a individual award, but it's achieved through your teammates. If he's thrown to a bunch of mediocre receivers, he ain't winning the Heisman. He was a great player. Thrown to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas certainly helped. Yeah, it's silly. It's silly, and his advisors are not doing him justice. Like, is it really is the money you're going to make because you want money from LSU for using your name? If that's, some people said that's actually at the heart of it. He's just using the number thing to, as a revenue. It's really about him feeling like he should get something because LSU is using his name, image, and likeness and stuff. Like, the whole thing is just, you were a top 5 NFL draft pick. You're not making enough money.
Yeah, you're painting the picture like you're strapped for cash, like that retired athlete that sells his championship ring or something like that. Like, that's not a good look here, bud.
No, it's this notion that young people have that there's not a quid pro quo, right? Like, yes, you're the athlete, you perform things on the field, but they're also giving you the platform to then go to go. Because if you did the same thing at Louisiana College, I don't know if there's still a thing, but Louisiana College used to have a D3 football team. If Jaden Daniels does the same things at Louisiana College that he did at LSU, nobody knows who he is. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he gets drafted and then becomes a guy down there, but he's not a top 5 NFL draft pick. He's not a Heisman Trophy winner. He'd be the best D3 player. But does anybody know who the D3 National Player of the Year was last year? I think it's like it's not the Walter Payton. I forget the name of the award. Does anybody know who that is? Can anybody name a single from the last 20 years Division III National Player of the Year? People who follow D3 probably could, but nobody else could. So this notion that, like, oh, these players are doing this service and the schools would be nothing without them. No, if every player in college football right now decided they didn't want to play football anymore and they were going to lock out, and a bunch of FCS G5 players all moved up to the Power Four, and all the FCS players moved up to G5, and then all the D2 players moved up to FCS, and then all D3 players moved up to D2. Guess what? We'd still sell out Notre Dame Stadium, because it's not about you; it's about Notre Dame. You know what I mean? And so more players need to understand. The school is doing something for you. You aren't the only one doing something for the school. It's a two-way street. And more players need to understand that. Now, that doesn't mean that players don't deserve to be paid. I support them. I support NIL. I've said this for a while. I'm an NIL supporter. If your name, image, and likeness is going to be used, you deserve something from that. But not when your freaking school is doing it in the way that they're doing it when you're gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really silly. Really, really silly.
Very self-absorbed.
Yes. And tone deaf.
Yep.
It is not going the way in the LSU fan base that I think he thought it was going to go. It really isn't.
From USMA 87, thoughts on Josh Pate's statement, quote, if Notre Dame were in the SEC, they would win the conference this year. Thoughts on it? I agree with it. I believe that they would probably be one of the teams in contention to be able to knock off Georgia. How do I know that? I watched Marcus Freeman outcoach Kirby Smart 2 years ago on a very big stage. I think Notre Dame has one of the best rosters in the country, and that's not because of their independence, and I don't have a conference to compare it to. I just think they have one of the best rosters in college football. That would hold true if they were in the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, or the Big 10. So I'm in agreement with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously part of it is what's the schedule and, all types of things. But, yeah, I think Notre Dame's the best team in college football. And I don't care what the schedule was. I think they're the best team in college football. So I think it absolutely would be true. I think I'd have them in the SEC title game. I'd have them in the Big 10 title game. I'd have them in the Big 12 title game. I'd have them in the ACC title game. No matter, yeah. I only say schedule because, maybe there's a thing where, they play 5 great SEC teams. They lose one, and then there's 2 teams with bad schedules that go undefeated or something like that in the league. That's kind of what I mean by that.
Sure. Like if their schedule looked like 24 Georgia or something.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. And then there's 2 other teams with, cakewalks, and there's 3 one-loss teams, and you lose the tiebreaker. Something like that. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah. From Sean Stewart, which blocking schemes do you like using? Which ones are better to use given the people you have compared to others?
I've always been a zone guy. I mean, I grew up in my formative years watching the Broncos just destroy people with inside and outside zone. I think it's easy to teach. I think it's very effective. I don't think you necessarily need elite players to do it. You just need guys that are smart and decent athletes and have some strength to them and technically sound. And I just think there's a lot you can do with a zone offense. That's a personal preference. I've seen teams that are gap scheme that are great at it. Basically, zone versus gap scheme, simples put, is in zone, you're blocking a zone. You're working with this D lineman to block from this to this. I handle this zone. If he comes to me, I pick him up. If he goes that way, I go up to the next level. It's kind of like zone coverage. If I'm covering this guy, if he goes there, that guy covers him. If he comes to me, I cover him. It's literally blocking a zone, and you're working some kind of combination oftentimes with another lineman, depending on how they're lined up. But gap scheme is more of you're blocking gaps. So you're blocking this. You're trying to create gaps in the run lane, where in zone is kind of like you're going to take the D line where they want to go, and it's up to the back to kind of find his point of entry. So when I taught inside zone as a running backs coach, it's like, look, this is your steps. You got to time it up right. You get downhill. And then based on how this guy does it, you're either going to go here, here, or here, where gap scheme is more designed. We're trying to block it up to hit the A gap. Like we want to hit the A gap kind of thing, or we want to create a crease between the tackle and the tight end. So we're going to down block, the tight end and have the tackle kick out and do some kind of quick gap scheme. And we're trying to create a lane in between those 2 guys. We're trying to create a running lane in between those 2 guys. So that works well too. The more I learn about duo, I'm like, dude, this is kind of like an old school, lead play with kind of zone principles, so it's a little bit different. It's kind of like a hybrid type of thing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Sean, there's anything, a 4-2-5 can work, a 4-3 can work, a zone team can be good, a man team can be good, a zone blocking team can be good, a gap scheme can be good. It's really about a couple things. Number one, do you have a scheme that fits your players, and have you recruited players to fit your scheme? And so basically, when you first go to a school, like, okay, what can these players execute what I want to do? If not, you go recruit guys that can. So do you have players that can do this? And not everybody that's a great zone blocker can be a great gap scheme guy, and vice versa. Some guys are just better at other things. It's like with anything. And so then that's one. Number two, are you a good teacher of the system? So there's a mental understanding of how the system works. If this guy does this, what do you do? If he goes there, what do I do? What's this call? What's that call? All these different things. And then the third part is, are they fundamentally sound executing the system? If a guy completely understands the system, but you haven't taught him to technically handle a guy that slants over, or a guy that does this, or if you haven't taught him the importance of, in a gap scheme, blocking the upfield shoulder as opposed to going under and letting the guy get over top of you. It's simple as, if the guy's going to beat you, make him beat you underneath. Don't let him go over top, because if he beats you underneath, you're going to get outside of it, unless he's a monster. You know what I mean? Like, just a great player. Just little things like that. So it's having the right players, teaching the scheme, and then teaching the technical aspects needed in the scheme. And then after that, it's like, are they strong? Are they athletic? I mean, all those type of things. But I think it just depends on what you're trying to do. I think zone teams, some people say, hey, zone teams need to be fast and athletic. Well, yeah, if you're running like a lot of mid zone and outside zone, yes, you do. If you're just running a lot of power inside zone, where it's hard for me to tell whether you're running inside zone or duo, then you need big old boys who can move people off the line. Some teams do a lot of gap schemes where, they like to run downhill stuff. You need big physical guys to do that. Some teams like to run a lot of gap scheme where they're getting on the run. They're running a lot of buck sweep. They may need a little bit more athleticism from the thing. So again, it really just comes down to what you do. At the peak of the West Coast offense, there were like 9 or 10 variations of it, because each coach that worked under, and Mike Holmgren had like half of those guys eventually, had previously worked for him, including Andy Reid. It's like the Andy Reid tree is really the Mike Holmgren tree, which is really the Bill Walsh tree, but like, when it was at its peak and Mike Shanahan was running it and John Gruden was running it, and there was like 10 variations of it. It was all the West Coast principles, but like, Mike Shanahan did it this way and John Gruden did it this way, and they'd put their little spin on it. But at the end of the day, there were still sort of like these principles that were evolving. So like, no two zone schemes are necessarily the same, but however you do it, you got to get kids that fit it, and you got to teach it, from a mental standpoint and a technical standpoint. And you do that. My personal preference was zone. Some of the best running teams I've ever seen were gap scheme teams. It really comes down to what you like best, and then making sure that you guys run it as well as you can.
Good deal. From Archer, resident Ohio State fan in the chat. If you had to cover a different college football team, which one would you choose? Factor in having to move close enough to campus to attend all practices and games in person.
I think I've talked about this before. I think I've said like Virginia Tech, maybe North Carolina. With some of the direction Virginia's going, maybe I don't know if I'd want to live in Virginia. So maybe if I lived in Chapel Hill, I'd be close enough to see my family. It's really just about, if I was going to not cover Notre Dame, I'd want to cover a team that would allow me to be closer to home, to go see my family, to see my nieces and my nephew. And they're great kids. They're in high school now. My nephew and Zachary and my niece Layla both go to my alma mater, and they're getting old. Zachary's taller than me now. It's crazy. He's like almost as tall as my dad. And, my niece Allie is just this great little softball player. And then my little niece Emma's an amazing little kid too. She's so full of life. It'd be awesome to be around them more. And so if I was not doing this, I would be doing something to allow me to be closer to home. And so Virginia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina, something like that. Just allow me to be home more and see my family.
I have no idea. Probably one of, IU or Louisville. Both of those teams are closer to me than South Bend. Louisville's about hour and some change away. Bloomington's an hour away from where I live right now. Both I think would be fun teams to cover. Louisville's a fun city. I would never move out of Indianapolis, but probably be one of them. One of those two, if I had to say. I feel like Louisville would be fun covering Jeff Brom and that team.
Yeah, it would.
From Beezer12 Washing Beard, what kind of quarterback is Tommy Carr? Is he close to the level of CJ Carr?
No, not right now. But I think Tommy is a late bloomer. Look, just because you're brothers doesn't mean you develop the same. CJ was advanced as a sophomore. Part of that is because he started playing as a freshman. Well, Tommy didn't start playing till his junior year because he was backing up CJ for his career. And so I think Tommy was a little bit of a late bloomer. I think his senior year, he got a little taller, stronger. His ball started coming out a little bit better. I think he's a little bit more athletic than CJ is. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the senior film, Trev, but like he can scramble around. I think he's a little taller than CJ.
Yeah.
His arm is starting to kind of take off. He had a really good spring at Michigan. So can he be what CJ is? I don't know. I'd have to watch what he is. But I think that Tommy's one of those kids that could kind of have that physical surge that allows him to skyrocket a little bit and maybe be a much better college player than he was a prospect coming out of high school. Yeah, I could see that.
I agree.
Like, there's a lot of people just thought he always just getting that scholarship because Michigan needed depth, and maybe that's why he got it. But then he went out there and outplayed Bryce Underwood all spring, according to a lot of Michigan sources. So, sometimes it's like the Patriots drafting Tom Brady. Nobody in New England thought they were getting what they were getting, because if they did, they wouldn't have waited till the 6th round to draft him. They wouldn't have taken that chance. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't think they were getting a guy that was going to win him a bunch of Super Bowls. But sometimes it works out that way, and you can be like, yeah, we knew it. Yeah, we knew it. We knew, we knew he had that. We knew he was going to be great. That's why we flipped him from Miami of Ohio, late in the process. So, but no, I think Tommy's a late bloomer that has a chance to be a really good player down the road.
Yeah, I agree. I think his sophomore, junior year, he's really going to start turning some heads, and I think Michigan's going to start having some relatively favorable odds on FanDuel to compete for the Big Ten, make the college football playoff, stuff like that. Once he takes over under center, I'll be very interested to see what that looks like.
Bryce Underwood better hope he doesn't miss any games.
Correct.
These next couple of years, because he may not get it back. So you're saying we can save that much money, start Tommy at quarterback, and use that money to go get some receivers and linemen? Okay, cool. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
From Brandon Gilbert, that you can remember, who has been the, quote, lowest ranked recruit that had the biggest impact, and then the highest recruit with the least amount of impact?
Let's just stick with receiver. 5-star receiver Jordan Johnson did absolutely nothing at Notre Dame, and literally unranked wide receiver Jordan Faison has become a dude.
Yep.
Rob, look, Chris Fink was not ranked at all, and he was a really good player at Notre Dame. That's obviously one. So, there's been guys like that. There's been a lot of guys like that at Notre Dame.
Agreed.
There's been first-round draft picks that were not even ranked in the top 2,000 coming out of high school. There was recently. There was a guy this year. Oh, gosh, who was it? I'm trying to remember. I thought there was a top 10 to 15 draft pick this year that was like super low ranked, but like Justin Jefferson from Seattle or from LSU was a very low ranked player. Yeah, Jordan Tyson was a 3-star recruit, and he was ranked as the number 134 player in Texas, according to On3. And that was better than his ESPN ranking, who had him as the number 141 player in Texas overall. And then 247 had him as the number 208 player in Texas coming out of high school. So, yeah, he ended up doing okay. Number 8 overall draft pick?
I believe so. Yeah, he was decent.
Yep.
From Bees, who's your G6 dark horse?
Navy. Navy's mine. Navy and Army are my two. Those are my two. They have very experienced offensive lines. If their defenses can do anything, they are two of mine. There's one out west, and I'll give a little shout out to my guy Andrew Gilmore. Andrew loves San Diego State because he's from the area. That's where Andrew's from, and he's always hyping up San Diego State. And I like that San Diego State team this year. I do. I think they're a sleeper. I think Fresno State's another one that could that's a team I got my eye on a little bit this year. I'm very curious how the Pac-12 shakes out this year. That's going to be a very interesting league. Very interesting league. I could see a Pac-12 team emerging, but I still think the American is still where we're going to see that. But that's my best bet.
Yep, Navy's mine. I agree.
UNLV, somebody mentioned UNLV. The problem is I don't think UNLV is a dark horse because a lot of people are picking UNLV to make the playoff. So I don't think UNLV even counts as a dark horse. No one's underestimating Dan Mullen. You know what I mean? Did you see the comments he made not too long ago about Florida?
Mm-mm.
That was the perfect level of pettiness. Because he kind of was like, it hasn't really worked out for him, has it? But he didn't say it like that. He said it in a far more classy manner. And I was like, dude, you're a better man than me because I would have been super petty about it. Super petty about it. I'm like, well, we went to 3 straight New Year's 6 games. Look, I've been doing my own thing. I haven't really been paying attention. How many has Florida made since I left? Oh, none? Really? Oh, wow. That's too bad. That's too bad. Maybe it didn't work out for him. I'd have been super petty about it. Super petty about it. We have some super chats down here, Trev. Let's get to some of these here. We did get to this one already. Tyler Evans said, what do you think of the whole Jane Daniels number 5 at LSU debacle? I just like to add that the part about the Heisman Trophy just added a little bit of something extra to it. Because when people say, he's just upset because they promised him that no one will wear number 5, I want to say, listen, I don't care if they promised him that and went back on it. It's not that big a deal, number one. But then you start getting to the point where you're calling the Heisman Trust saying LSU should have to return their copy of the Heisman. You've now taken it way too far.
Yeah.
And have just become a child at this point in time.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on that too is what's the end game? People can't wear number 5 until what, you die? What's the end game? I don't understand what the
numbers should not be retired in college sports. They should retire jerseys. You know what I mean? Have a ring of fame that's got Rocket Ismail 25 on it, Brady Quinn 10 on it. Where you're retired because it's their name, it's not, and their jersey. Other guys can wear 25, but nobody did it like Rocket kind of thing because it's a tribute. There's a while there where every time Notre Dame signed a really athletic recruit, he got number 25. You know what I mean? Like Tony Driver and. I think Munir Prince got number 25, if I remember correctly, when he came to remember whoosh. Right. So it was kind of like a badge. Oh, you're rocking 20. It's like wearing number 3 at quarterback. There's a while, Ron Paulus wore number 3. Arnez Battle wore number 3. Why? Because Joe Montana wore it. It was a tribute. It wasn't something you looked, I can't believe you're letting somebody else wear my number. It's like, dude, get over yourself. You're not the first Heisman Trophy winner at LSU. You're not the last. You didn't even win a title. I mean, Matty Mock, to me, has more claim to have his jersey retired, than you do. Not Matty Mock. Matt Mock. Sorry. Matty Mock was the other one, the one at Missouri. Matt Mock was the one at LSU. And he had Matt Flynn. Matt Flynn and Matt Mock have greater claim to have their jerseys numbers. Why? Because they won a natty. You didn't even win the SEC. Come on, bro. I've never turned on the guy as fast as I've turned on Jane Daniels. I was a big Jane Daniels fan until about 27 hours ago. I'm serious. You know this. I've always talked highly of Jane Daniels. I'm off the train.
Very fair. Super chat from Archie Ingram. Appreciate you. If Notre Dame wins a title, how does that flip national media recruiting and the way other programs treat them?
Well, with recruiting, it's just going to put their current recruiting operation on steroids. I mean, it's going to be nuts watching this team recruit, assuming the staff somewhat stays intact. As far as national media, look, they're going to do what they do with everybody. They're going to hype up Notre Dame and make their money off Notre Dame and talk about Notre Dame. And they're going to have a certain number of people that are pro Notre Dame at a network, and then a certain number of people at the network that are anti Notre Dame, because you got to keep both factions happy, and so you'll see Notre Dame talked about constantly, like they do with Ohio State now, like they do with other teams now. And then when Notre Dame struggles, if that point in time comes, then they'll be kind of all gang up on Notre Dame. That's just how they are with a lot of teams. It's not unique to Notre Dame. And then how other programs treat them, there's going to be two levels to that. There are going to be programs that treat Notre Dame with jealousy. Other big-time programs that are jealous of Notre Dame that will talk more bad about them, will try to do other things, won't want to play them. And then there's other smart programs that are going to say, we're going to ride this train. Hey, Notre Dame, why don't you come play us? If you want to know why, I saw a tweet out. Some Notre Dame fan retweeted a comment made by someone that covers BYU about how expensive tickets are to the BYU Notre Dame game. And the Notre Dame fan retweeted it, was like, this is why people play Notre Dame. You will see a lot more teams wanting to get Notre Dame on the schedule soon, because they're like, do you know how much revenue we would generate that weekend for our school and for our community? Yes, please. So, yeah. That's what's so funny about these teams that don't want to play Notre Dame. You're going to spite yourself to make somewhat point about what Notre Dame, how they shouldn't be independent anymore, even though they've always been independent, and you have the ability to go independent if you want. So you're going to turn down, 7-8 figure weekend, in jumps over what you would have made for whoever you're going to play non-conference. Why? To prove some point. So Notre Dame is forced into a conference that won't be yours. It's silly. But so it'll be different. There won't be like one way. Everyone now treats them this way. Everyone now treats them that way. It'll be more extreme. The people that don't like them are going to like them even less, and the people that are not stupid and understand business are going to be like, Notre Dame, we want a piece of this. You know what I mean? Like, we want this action. Please come. We'll do a home and home with you, because we know what that game is going to mean for our community and for our school.
Yeah, agreed with everything you said about recruiting. National media, how it's going to go, because you're starting to see Notre Dame garner a lot of love this offseason. So from, I would say, January through probably February, you would see a lot of, see, we told you so. We called this Notre Dame stuff back in July. This is why we were high on them. And then about the start of spring, you're going to see that transition over into, can they do it again? Because that was plastered all over the front pages of, the ESPN, Sporting News, Lindy's, Athlon Sports of, can Indiana repeat? Are they here to stay? You'll see that a lot, but they'll get their clicks out of Notre Dame, that's for sure. And the only thing that I have to add,
and that's okay as long as you're like doing real journalism about Notre Dame, real analysis of Notre Dame. I'm actually okay with that.
I am too. I didn't have an issue with it. It was just, I think that'll be the evolution.
I didn't take it that way. I was just making sure that I was clarifying to people, like, getting clicks is okay if it's done in a way that's legitimate. I'm putting out real news, real analysis, even if it's critical of the team.
And then as far as the way that other programs treat them, the only thing that I would have to add is the teams that are going to try to disparage Notre Dame and talk down on them will, behind the scenes, try to copy paste what and how Notre Dame operates as a program. I guarantee you that'll happen. It'll be like, Notre Dame sucks. They should be in a conference, but so how do you guys run your recruiting operation again? That's interesting. Can we see that? How
that's how the real ones are going to do. They're going to want to say, hey, man, what are you guys doing over here? What's your NIL situation? That's what the real ones do. And honestly, that's why Marcus Freeman has always shown respect for Kirby Smart, because they would talk ball. There was none of these games that James Frank was trying to play. It was all business, all talking ball. Hey, talking in the offseason about things we're doing. That's what the real ones will do. Guys like Sark are going to go cry me a river and all this other kind of stuff, where Kirby Smart's going to be like, all right, Notre Dame, let's have a conversation. Let's meet up down here Nashville at this thing. Freeman, you're going to be this golf outing. I'm going to be here. I don't even know if Marcus Freeman plays golf. You get the point that I'm making. Let's talk. What are you guys doing? And that's what the good ones do. That's what the good ones do. And the ones who don't win don't do that. Like, I'd be one to bet you $50 that Dan Lanning would be like, hey, Freeman, let's talk. Let's figure this out. You know what I mean? What are you guys doing? And then Freeman say, what are you guys doing some good things? That's what coaching used to be about, man. I remember sitting here, first time I met Al Golden. I was coaching at Christopher Newport, and Al Golden was at UVA with this back when Al Groh was the coach. And then I think Tim Beckham was the head coach at Bowling Green. I think he was head coach. This is a couple years after Urban Meyer. And I remember we had a get-together on our staff. They met at our place. We had decent facilities, and they all met at our place. And so we've got all of our meeting rooms. We have different staff. So I'm in there with Mike Groh and our head coach, and then the Bowling Green offensive staff, and we're just sharing stuff. We're talking. Now, we listened more than shared, but like the Bowling Green and UVA staff are sharing things, and then I had a little bit of input on certain things. And there's one point where it's like we're just talking about like little technical things. This is how we teach our 3-step drop. This is how we teach our 3-step drop. Just stuff like that. Hey, what do you guys do when teams do this? When you're trying to run flood, this is actually a thing we talk about. When you guys are trying to run flood concepts, what is something you do? Can't remember if it was against cover 2, like what are your checks against cover 2 and things like that. And we're just having great football talk. That used to happen all the time. And now coaches are just so paranoid and so petty. And so you just don't see as much of that as you used to. But the real ones, that they still do that stuff. They still want to talk ball. They still want to say, hey, man, and the real ones are willing to talk to people about it. It's like, hey, you can know what we're doing, and but here's what we're doing. And I think you'll see some of that. I wish we could get back to that. I do wish we could get back to that a little bit more. But coaches are a very paranoid breed. The more money you make, the more paranoid with things like that, because you now have more to lose. That's a big part of it.
Sure.
Sadly.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. What is your biggest guilty pleasure movie?
You want to take a crack at this, Trev?
I mean, dude, anything with like big monsters fighting other big monsters fighting robots, like stuff where it's I call them like, those are like my dumb guy brain movies where it's like I'm not turning it on to watch like a Martin Scorsese like plot rich, dialogue rich film. I just want to turn my brain off and be like, oh, did you see that robot punch that monster in the head, and that monster for whatever reason came out of a crack in the earth? Like it's just. It's the Pacific Rims, it's the new Kong universe movies. Like even Pacific Rim 2 is a terrible movie, and I will still go and watch it because it's like, I kind of
big robots fighting monsters. I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those would probably be mine. I don't know, Brian. What about you?
I don't know if I should say mine. The mockery that might come from this for ages. I don't know if I want to deal with that. I'll just say this: it's a Reese Witherspoon movie, and we'll just leave it at that.
Ooh, another. No, that's fair. Another one of mine. I love Crazy Stupid Love. I think that's one of the best rom-com movies out there.
Yes, yeah,
love that movie.
Yes, the scene, the scene at the end when, what's his name? David Lindhagen shows up, and Ryan Gosling goes, "David Lindhagen." Turns his ring around. And then when Jessica, what's her name? Oh, man, what's that girl's name? The blonde-haired lady in real life. But the mom in the movie, when she goes, "You're in love with him?" Oh, it just kind of hits her like, why that girl's rude to her before. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Ryan Gosling has turned into a surprising one of my favorite actors and kind of people in Hollywood. Did you see the movie he did with Emily Blunt? What's it called? Oh man, he's a stuntman. What's it called? Oh, shoot.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but that one was really. I'm actually going to go look it up. What was it called? That's going to really drive me crazy. Fall Guy. That was like. It was a stupid movie, but it was like a fun stupid. It was meant to be stupid, but very entertaining. I've not seen Project Hail Mary yet. Ange and we committed we're going to watch it together, and we just haven't been able to get our schedules on the same page. She made me have to wear freaking watch Devil Wears Prada 2 first before I could watch that one. But then I said I'd never seen Devil Wears Prada 1, so she made me watch that one as well, which was not pleasant. But yeah, that's on our to-do list before fall camp is to watch that one. I heard it's really good.
It's really a very good watch. Yeah. Highly recommend. We got the Friday free-for-all mailbag going on here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Getting us kicked off here, we have a super chat from our guy, Mr. Rogers04. Appreciate the super chat. What is the best G5 rivalry? Bowling Green versus Toledo, Battle of I-75, New Mexico versus New Mexico State, the grand rivalry. I think it's
the Grande rivalry.
Yeah,
that's the Grande. Yeah.
App State versus Georgia Southern, deeper than hate.
Look, I'm a Northwest Ohio kid, so for me, it's Bowling Green and Toledo. That's the only one I ever really grew up knowing was even a rivalry at the G5 level. So that would be mine. That'd be mine.
Yeah, I'd go. This is kind of a cop out, but I'd go Army Navy. I think that's the best G5 rivalry that's not listed here. But of the ones listed here, I'd probably also go Bowling Green versus Toledo.
Yep. We got one from Ferdinand Magellan. That's a very original name. Well done.
Appreciate the super chat and appreciate the handle. 2 players I have not heard hardly anything about are Cole Mullins and Gordy Solstead. Is either in the mix for playing time this year?
Gordy's probably still another year away from being in the mix. I think Cole's in the mix. We've talked a little bit about him. I think the thing you and I commented before after the practice we watched him, Trev, is like he's just at Notre Dame at the wrong time.
Yeah.
He was at Notre Dame 3-4 years ago. He's in the 2 deep, and I'm feeling okay about it. I am. It's just he's just at Notre Dame at the wrong time.
Yeah, not too long ago, we'd be very much looking forward to the Gordy Solstead era on the D-line, and he's just behind guys like Rodney Dunham and Ebenezer Utade and Bryce Young and Boubacar, and Keon comes in.
Well, and Gordy, too, was always a guy that was minimum year 3 before he started, because not only was he raw, but he also tore his ACL his senior year, and that put him behind, like Cole did. That put him behind a little bit as well. So, yeah. That would be one. From Chandler Bontrager 1384, another one of our Miami fans. It's all about the U. For you, my friend, it is. And we think Miami's going to be very good this year.
We do. Another super chat from Jacob Watson. Appreciate you. What player would you say gets the most growth and will be a player that will make an impact by next year? It can't be a current starter on offense and defense.
Oh, boy. A starter by next year or an impact player by next year that won't be a starter this year.
Oh.
Go ahead.
On defense, I'm going to go Rodney Dunham.
Sure. Yeah, because Boubacar will be gone next year.
Yeah.
He'll be in the NFL.
Offense, probably Ian Premer.
My one on defense is actually Mad Faremo. I think Mad Faremo's an All-American next year. That's a really early, bold prediction. If he stays at Notre Dame, he will be an All-American next year.
Yeah, I love that.
Because he will play a higher percentage of snaps than Drake will, and Kingston and guys like that will play this year, because there just won't be as many of them. So, yeah, that's mine. Off Ian Premer's a really good one. Really good one. There's another young offensive lineman that, depending on who comes and goes this year, I've got my eye on Sullivan Garvin as a potential. Him and Tyler Merrill, Grayson McHugh, one of those linemen, but I really like Sullivan Garvin as a sleeper type of player that could really break out and do some things. Really like him. All right, that's it for the super chats we're going to address now. There's another super chat that we will get to later when we get to the other question about it, but that's it for the super chats right now. Let's get back to let's get some people we have not got in the show yet today. Here's an interesting food question, Trev. Here we go. I'm going to ask you this one. So you're more of the tailgate game day food guy than I am. So Irish Dragon 23 asks, Biso Hold on Mailbag Friday, tailbag edition, pulled pork, smoked wings and pig shots, which is bacon-wrapped sausage cups filled with cream cheese and barbecue sauce. So, Bicycle Hold Tailgate Edition, Trev. Pulled pork, smoked wings, and pig shots.
Well, Irish Dragon, I can confidently say I've never had a pig shot because this is my first time. I am now today years old at 1:44 p.m. to learn what pig shots are. If I ever had one, it sounds like that would be my buy, but I got to sell it because I've never had it. But I'm very intrigued. So if we ever link up at a tailgate and you bring me a pig shot, I would not turn it down. But off the rip, I would buy pulled pork, hold smoked wings, and I would sell pig shots, but I'm very intrigued.
Some of the people in the chat immediately guessed the movie. And she got it. She nailed it. So, and then Salty said, Brian was, I do, man.
It's a good movie, dude. It's a good movie.
Definitely. I knew it was wrong. One time my wife walks in, she goes, are you watching Legally Blonde again? No, it was just on, honey. I swear.
That's
good guess, y'all. Good guess.
From Cajun Domer, have y'all noticed any changes during the offseason to address slow starts in September other than knowing the starting quarterback and offensive line?
Again, this kind of goes back to there's not a lot we're going to be able to see with the little access that we get.
Yeah.
And honestly, guys, part of Marcus Freeman said something in the opening press conference I thought was very astute. This isn't about just redoing everything. It's just about little fixes, little things. But you also can't dismiss that part of it is something that Trevor said when we first started the offseason and is repeated 50 times because it's applicable. This is the first time Marcus Freeman in 5 years, his 5th year, is the first time he's got the same starting quarterback, the same offensive coordinator, and the same defensive coordinator going into a season. That matters. And there are lessons he had to learn that he couldn't learn until Northern Illinois happened. There just were. Would Notre Dame have learned the same lessons last year if they would have played A&M and Miami in weeks 5 and 6? Will they have learned lessons that they would have been able to mask early in the season if they started off with like Purdue and and Boston College and teams like that? And so it's really so much not about like changing dramatic things. It's like little things. It's like focus. Like one thing that Marcus Freeman learned in his first year is they'd have a new slogan each week, some new motto they're going to build around. And at one point in time, the players were like, Coach, this is like harder to do. Like we have something new and we don't have time to get on. So he's like, hey, let's then we'll go back to just like, this is our team motto. Like there's just little things like that you think, and I've been through this, every young coach has been through this, where when I'm head coach or when I'm an offensive coordinator, we're going to do it this way. And I can't believe none of these coaches that I've played or worked for have ever tried this. I'm super smart. We're going to do it this way. And then you get to become a head coach and you do it that way and you realize, oh, this is why they never did that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they must have known something, but you don't realize it until you implement it and you realize, oh, that's why they didn't do this. And so those lessons have already been learned and they've already been applied and they've just been gradual as you work towards what they're working towards. And it could be something as simple as like, hey, we were gassed in the first game. Is it because we overworked or underworked our players? You prepare for that. And if we overworked them, did we overwork them because we put too much on them in camp, or did we overwork them because we didn't do enough to get them prepared for that in the strength program in the offseason? There's all types of different ways to look at that, and you apply those, and they're tweaks. They're not overhauls. They're little tweaks. Now, I can tell you that Notre Dame has applied tweaks talking to people, but I haven't seen if they're going to work or not because we just haven't been there. But the things that Marcus Freeman has tweaked in the past have tended to work. And so that's why I have a semblance of confidence at Cajun Domer that they will work this year as well.
From Andre Tonsel, do you believe the 9-3 team could become the new 10-2 team if they extend the playoffs?
Brother, 8-4 will be the new 10-2 when they expand to 24.
Correct.
I mean, that's just the reality of it. Let's look at last year. in the playoff rankings, because 10-2 used to be the thing that like got you at the bottom of the play. There were 10-2 teams left out of the first 12-team playoff, right? I mean, that's the reality. So let's look at college football playoff rankings in the first playoff season, right? So you had 10-2 Miami was left out. You had 10-2 BYU was left out. What's also funny about 10-2 BYU, who I've always wondered this, Trev. Did they 10-2 BYU? I couldn't remember if they won their bowl game or not. They did. They went 11-2. But 10-2 BYU made the playoff or missed the playoff as an at-large. And then 10-2 Iowa State missed the playoff because they went and lost their conference championship game. 11-1 Army missed the playoff. 10-2 UNLV, 10-2 Memphis, so forth and so on. So 10-2 was like that one where you were gonna, and there was 3 10-2 teams that made the playoff that year, correct? Regular season 10-2. So Ohio State made it, Notre Dame, Tennessee made it, and SMU made it. As far as 10-2 teams that made it without winning their league. So then you look at last year, or you look at 2025, or you look at if you go to 24, there's no 4-loss teams that are in it. But as you look at 25, however, Trev, and you get to a 24-team playoff, and now all of a sudden you got 8-4 Iowa is in the conversation. There would have been other top 24 teams because they had to jump JMU and North Texas into the top 25 to get them into that at-large conversation. But yeah, 9-3 to 8, and then 8-4. Iowa at 8-4 last year would have made the college football playoffs. They were the number 23 ranked team. It would have made the college football playoffs last year in a expanded playoff. Like, that's just kind of gross. In 2023, 8-4 Clemson would have made the college football playoffs, and 8-4 Kansas State was right on the verge of the college football playoffs. 9-3, you're a lock now. I mean, you're getting in if you're 9-3 in the top 6 or 7 of your conference.
Yeah.
So in 2022, you had 8-4 at number 19, 8-4 at number 20, 8-4 Notre Dame would have been at 21. Think about that. This is why I think I'll use Notre Dame as evidence of why a 2014 playoff is stupid. An 8-4 Notre Dame team that lost at home to Marshall, lost at home to 3-9 Stanford, and had 2 double-digit losses to the only 2 good teams that they really played all year, would have been in the playoff, and comfortably so.
Comfortably in the playoffs.
That team had no business being in the college football playoffs, and they would have been in with not a lot of stress. Like, that's just another reason why a 2014 playoff is stupid. And 8-4 Mississippi State would have also been in the college football playoff.
Yeah. I mean, to use your example, to build on it from that 2022 season, you want to talk about taking value out of the regular season. That USC Notre Dame game in 2022, USC could have lost that game by 30 and hosted a playoff game. Notre Dame could have lost. They did lose it by double digits, and they would have comfortably been in the playoffs. Yep. It wouldn't have mattered. It just didn't. It completely takes the value out of it.
Yep. Agree completely.
From down, out, but statistically average, I think that Ian Premer and Bubba Frazier will be contributors this year and be part of the dynamic nature of this year's offense. What is both of their ceilings this year?
Ceilings? I think Bubba's ceiling is that of a part-time offensive weapon that potentially becomes an impact special teams guy. I think that's his ceiling this year.
Yeah.
I think Ian Premer's ceiling is Brock Bowers. I don't think he's going to get there. I don't think he's going to be that good, but it's a ceiling. It's what he could potentially be. I think a good, more realistic ceiling, like where it's not max out and other things happen, is Michael Mayer's freshman year, Kyle Rudolph's freshman year. Like, that's a more reasonable expectation for him. But his ceiling, I shouldn't say reasonable ceiling. That's a reasonable expectation for him. A reasonable ceiling is, ceiling is this is how good you could be if everything goes right and you've got the talent to be so. It's what Brock Bowers did in 2021, where you're the best pass catcher on the team that wins a national championship. I'm not saying he's going to do that. I'm just saying that's a ceiling. He's a 5-star recruit. He's top 25 national player, and he's an elite talent. So he could certainly get there.
Yeah, agreed.
Certainly could get there. Yep. Good question.
From Bees, do you think there's a decent possibility Texas is a 3 to 4 loss team?
Well, Trev, what would you define as a decent possibility?
I I don't know, probably like a probability over 50%. Like I don't know how I would gauge a
Okay.
decent possibility.
Based on that, I'd say no. But if you're like, oh, it could happen, but it would surprise me, but not shock me, then yes, I think it's that. So like, is there a better than 50-50 chance they go eight and they're a four loss team? No, I don't know that I'd go there, but that's a hard thing for me to quantify. That's not really the kind of numbers I'm good with. But if Texas this year went 8-4, and let's say, Trev, they lost at home to Ohio State, lost one of the two back-to-back games to Tennessee and Oklahoma away from home, and then lost at LSU in November and then at Texas A&M in November, would you be shocked? I'd be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. Shocked to me is like Penn State going 6-6.
Yeah,
Penn State going 8-4 isn't it's a surprise. It's not a shock. That's how I look at it.
sure.
I would be surprised, not shocked, because their schedule is very difficult. Because they could go 8-4, Trev, and lose to the four. Let's say they lose to Ohio State, Tennessee, LSU, and Texas A&M. This is what happens when you play a legitimately good schedule, and Texas does. In fairness, play a legitimately good schedule. They would still have wins versus Oklahoma, Florida, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri on the road. They'd still have some very good wins this year, even at 8-4. They wouldn't belong in the playoff, but they'd be easily in a 2014 playoff, easily in, which is exactly why coaches want to go to a 2014 playoff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's a possibility. It wouldn't shock me. I'd be more shocked by Ohio State going 8-4 than I would Texas.
Sure.
Even though they both have really strong schedules, because I just feel like Ohio State has more consistent year after year after year than what Texas is, where Texas has kind of been a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on the surprise versus shock piece. FanDuel has Texas's over under win total at 9.5. So they kind of see it being around closer to 3 than 4, but I think that makes for an interesting conversation. But with that schedule, I would not be beside myself if Texas was 9-3 or 8-4. From Beezer12 Washingbeard, are you a multi-TV, multi-screen watcher when it comes to football or a channel flipper?
Yes. Because I'm not wealthy enough to have enough TV sometimes to see all of those things. I struggle, like if I'm actually paying attention to a game, I struggle with the 4 things on at once, just because I get so easily distracted. But if it's like 4 games I don't really care about, I'm just kind of curious how they're going, I can do that. I'm more of a TV is one, laptop is here, it's got a game on, iPad has a game on over here, and then I'll move one of them around and channel flip. So I'm kind of both a little bit. But if it's like a big game, I'm watching that game. I also, this is stupid. You're not going to be surprised by this, Trev, but I don't like commercials. I don't like if there's a train and it's would be the same amount of time for me to go the shorter route, stop at a train, wait on the train, and it would take me maybe 2 minutes longer to drive around it. I would rather drive around it and lose 2 minutes. I don't like,
Because you're always moving.
yes, I don't like commercials are like, God, what, I'm wasting time. I'm not, so then that's why I flip a lot of times too. But then I'll make sure I'm back before the other game starts. So that's also kind of part of my flipping. It's on my neurosis.
Yeah, Notre Dame games aside, I am a multi TV / multi screen watcher. I saw Big put it in the chat. I'm a YouTube TV guy too, and so I love their like quad boxing that they have going on. That's why one of the only reasons why I still watch the NFL is because Red Zone caters to my ADHD unbelievably. I mean, because there's literally no commercials. I mean, now the only thing that they have is like while a game is still on, like an ad will pop up on the side of the screen, but it caters to it unbelievably well. So that's one big reason for me there. I'm with you. I hate commercials. I will do the same. I'll go 15 minutes out of my way to not
Mhm.
sit stationary. I
Yep.
will. I mean, if
That's why we get along so well, Trevor. We're both nuts. We're both a little freaking weird.
yep,
So I think that's why we get along so well.
got to always be moving, dude.
Oh,
Always.
it's bad, man. It's partly why I don't think I don't sleep well. Because I'm like, well, if I get a good 8 hours of sleep, that's 3 hours of work I can't get done.
That
And it's yeah.
that's what took me so long to get accustomed to flying because
Yeah.
I always used to be a driver. And
Mhm.
it could take me 8 hours to drive somewhere, but like two to fly. But it's like when I'm sitting in the airport and
Yeah.
waiting or going standing in the line at TSA, I'm like,
Well,
dude, I would have been halfway through Ohio by now. Like, what
that's
are we
why I always
doing?
drive to Pitt or
Yeah.
Pittsburgh whenever I got to go there. I could get on a plane in South Bend and drive to, but I'm like, look, by the time it take me to drive to the airport, go through security, wait, got to get there an hour early. The flight's an hour, then you got to go get your bag, then you got to go get the rental car, and then it would take the same amount of time. If it's more than an hour different, I'm okay flying. But that's what well if Angela will go with me on a trip, I'll definitely do it because then I can have her drive part of the time and then I can work. So yeah, that's part of it. But I mean now I work at the airport and work on the plane.
Mm.
If it's a work thing. If it's you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I get you on that. I love this from Irish for Life. He goes, we went from CJ Carr to the Devil Wears Prada. Friday free for all is living up to the billing.
Man,
Absolutely, my dude. Absolutely. Very well done. Let's go to this one from Irish 88.
they don't have to be Notre Dame players, but whose high school and college players film do you enjoy most watching?
I mean, that's a very broad question. There's obviously a lot of guys that we could kind of get into. I'll just kind of look at some of the guys in this year's class that I really like, the 27 guys that aren't committed to Notre Dame. I loved Peyton Houston, Trev. You remember that. Peyton
Oh yeah.
Houston's my dude. He's an absolute stud. He's going to LSU. He's a kid from Louisiana. I think he's an outstanding player. I love the Amir Brown kid going to Nebraska.
Mm.
It worked out well for Notre Dame. They got better players than him, but I really like Amir Brown. I would have gladly taken him. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the David Gabriel Georgia kid. It's going to Tennessee. Outstanding back. Outstanding back. Brendan Lacey was a kind of a quarterback slash running back slash wide receiver. Running back slash wide receiver from Texas going to LSU. He's a player that I really like to watch quite a bit. Those are some of my favorite guys. So, looking at receiver, I think that the Julian Caldwell kid that's going to Texas Tech, really proficient route runner, really talented player. That was a really nice pickup for them. You guys all know that I was a big Cade Cooper fan. He's also going to LSU. LSU's getting some of my favorite film watchers in this class. There's no question about that. A couple other guys, obviously Jackson Dollar, kid going to Georgia, is a really good player, but I was really into Malik Howard. I really liked Malik Howard's film. The
You
kid that's
did.
going to Tennessee, he was a really
Yeah.
good player. That was a really nice pickup for them. Defensive line wise, Mekhi Brown, who's going to USC, loads of potential. Little raw, loads of potential. Really like that pickup for them. That was a nice pickup. KJ Green was a kid, again, raw, needs a lot of weight room work, but very talented player. Clemson got one of my favorite sleepers on the D line, Santana Harvey. It's a kid I liked a lot, Trev. Had Notre Dame missed on Jackson Vaughn or Abraham Cisse and needed to kind of go get a third guy, I would have gladly looked at Santana Harvey. Maybe he grows into a D tackle. Auburn got one of my favorite sleepers in this class, Ryan Jackson, big, tall, twitchy kid from Maryland. Trev, you and I talked about him before. We both liked him a lot. That was a good pickup. Michigan got Xavier Muhammad's a guy that I really like, very raw, new to football, hasn't played football that long. That was a really nice pickup for Michigan. He was one of my favorite prospects to watch in this class as well. Florida State got a kid I really like from Mississippi, Sam Lejeune. I think he's a really sleepy, real good sleeper, underrated player. Liked him quite a bit. You guys all know I was very high on Noah Glover. Very high on Noah Glover as a linebacker. He's going to Miami. He's got really good film. Underrated player. He's honestly the closest thing I've seen to Jaden Ausberry. Undersized player, but really smart, really athletic, more powerful than you think he'd be at his size. He's a guy that I liked watching a lot in this class. Big Gavin Williams fan, the safety going to USC. Love that kid's film. I could watch his film all day, man. He's a really good football player. Really good football player. So yeah, those are some of the guys in the 27 class that I really liked watching their film and really liked breaking them down that also had Notre Dame offers. And there's others I could go through and talk about it as well. But yeah, that would be it. That would be it.
Good deal. From Anthony Bell, you can pick one team to win the 2026 college football playoff for an $1,000 prize, or you can pick two teams to win for a 90K prize, and so on and so forth. How many teams would you choose to win the CFP this year?
Is that asking us like how many teams we think can win a championship and then using betting to get it, or is it just more of a strategy for betting question? How are you taking that?
I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily call it like a betting strategy. It's just kind of like if you pick three teams, we would win 33,000. It's basically increasing your odds to win money.
Okay.
So, like, if we pick Notre Dame to win the championship, we get $100,000. But if they don't, then we get nothing. Versus,
Okay.
like, let's say we say, I think the championship winners will be one of Notre Dame, Oregon, or Texas. If just any one of those three win it, we would win $33,000
Okay.
essentially.
I'd pick Notre Dame at 100. So one team. But I'm not a gambler. But my personality would be I'm going for the big one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, Anthony, the better in me would ask, what do I have to put in to win $100,000 for Notre Dame to win a championship? Like, if it's like I just say on a show, I think Notre Dame wins the national title, and you know, if I just say Notre Dame on a show wins 100,000, then yeah, I'd be down for that. Or if it just decreases by 10K, because I think I might have misread that, like two teams at 90, three teams at 80, four teams at 70, then I guess I would. I don't know. I'd probably pick any one of the teams in the 12-team field if that means I get to win, $9,000 for just saying it. But that's the, I guess you call it the better in me talking, I suppose.
Yeah. Somebody asked this follow-up question, Trev. No, I did not like Legally Blonde 2. Some movies just should not have a remake or a second one. Just stick with the first one. And like that's what I hated Clueless as a kid, but a lot of my female friends loved Clueless. My friend Katie in high school, just a friend. She loved that movie. She'd watch it every freaking weekend. I was pleased that Clueless said, "Hey, we're just going to do this once." You know what I mean? Like, there's no follow up to Clueless. Now they've even got a mini series on one of the streaming channels of Legally Blonde. I'm like, guys, he just enjoyed that the first one was really good and not try to ruin it with the second one.
Yep. Not everything needs a remake. Not everything needs a sequel. Not
like Major League. I'd have been totally fine if there was just one. Now, Major League 2 was fine. It had some funny stuff in it, but it's like, no. I'd have been okay if they didn't make it.
From Archer, Texas, Oregon, and Notre Dame all have, quote, natty or bust pressure this year. If any of those teams fail to make the semis, what sort of changes would you expect to see from each program?
And then he followed up, Trev. He said, follow up, for example, if Texas doesn't make the semis, I expect the pressure to finally be enough for Sark to hire legit OC and hand over play calling duties. I would tend to agree with that. So he said Notre Dame, Oregon, or Texas, right? What are some changes that we would expect? I think for Notre Dame, it would be a coaching staff overhaul at some of the position coaches is what I think we would see.
Yeah.
For Notre Dame not to even make the semis, some things went wrong, really wrong. And the coaches that were in charge of those things would, I think, maybe be encouraged to look elsewhere, assuming Freeman comes back. I think that would be a big one.
Agreed. Without adding names to it, it'd be some of the things that we've talked about over the course of this offseason. What are the keys to Notre Dame winning a title?
I'll add names to it. Joe Rudolph,
line.
Chris Ash, Marty Biaggi, Mike Brown. I'll add names to it. Because those are the positions that you look and say, if things don't go the way they're supposed to, that's probably the positions that we're talking about that faltered. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying if they fall short, those would be the positions I'd probably point to.
Yep. And then for Oregon, it'd be going outside of the program to hire an offensive coordinator.
I could see him doing what Urban – remember in 2016 when Urban he promoted Ed Warner and Tim Beck to be the OC after Tom Herman left, and it was a colossal failure. And 1 year, and we're changing this.
Yeah. I
could see Dan Lanning being like, yep, we went outside the program to replace, Kenny Dillingham. We're going to go outside the program to, I could see him riding the ship quickly. Dan Lanning does not strike me as someone who's going to just sit back for 2-3 years, and if something is a colossal failure, and say, we'll just maybe see how it goes next year. I could see him shaking things up immediately, and I
Agreed.
could see Marcus Freeman doing that as well. I think for Texas, it is not only that, but I think if they don't live up to expectations, why? Is it the offense that fell short? Then it's not only is it that, but then it's also Kyle Flood's got to go. And then if the offense is really good but the defense struggles, I could see the Will Muschamp experiment being very short-lived. Very short-lived. That'd be mine.
From Michael Kostrup, do you think both Jeremiah Loves would have been impactful wide receivers at Notre Dame? Or both Jay Loves, Julian Love, Jeremiah Love?
Yeah. Julian Love could have been a good slot receiver at Notre Dame. I think he could have Julian Love at Notre Dame would have been Theo Riddick in the slot. Could have played some running back. He was a really good high school, kick returner and running back as well. So yeah, I think both of them could have been in different ways.
Yeah,
in different ways. Jeremiah Love also wouldn't have got as jacked if he was playing wide receiver. He would have looked different physically. He would have still been athletic, but he would have probably maybe been like 5 to 10 pounds leaner, and had to be more smooth and twitchy. Yeah, he could have done that.
Would have looked more like Chris Brown, built more like Chris Brown.
Yeah, like a thicker, speed guy playing the Z position, running posts and come. But yeah, he's got good hands. You saw it with the one-handed catch against Texas A&M. He would have had to learn route running, but it wouldn't have been foreign to him either because he did that stuff earlier in his career in high school. And he played corner, so he has an understanding of, how to get open. Yeah, they could. I think both of them played the positions that their upside was the greatest, but both also could have done that, Michael. Very good observation and question.
From Anthony Hans, do you think Nolan James Jr. has some work to do to get that RB2 spot?
Yes, but I think that's also true for everybody else in the conversation for RB2. Does he have work to do? Yes, but I feel like if I don't add context to it, then it makes it seem like I don't think Nolan James is going to win that job.
Right.
I think Nolan James and Kedron Young and the freshmen all have work to do if they're going to earn that because they're battling other really good players. I would even throw Aeneas Williams. I think Aeneas Williams is going to start for Notre Dame and have a very good season, but there's a world in which Aeneas Williams isn't their best running back.
Sure.
And then now he's like battling for that number 2 spot. Maybe he's back to being number 3. And it's not because Aeneas isn't good. It's just that's how deep I think that room is. So while true for Nolan James, I think that's also true for the guys Nolan James is in the conversation with. They all have work to do.
Agreed. From Vince Trowbridge, the VP of IB. And that
looks like an avatar from college football game or something.
That's me.
Is that you?
They edited the jersey colors, but that's a picture from my Instagram.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's a little creepy. That's a little creepy.
I was looking at it, I was like, that looks way too familiar. That's funny.
That's creepy. I'm not gonna lie, dude. That's a little creepy.
But from Vince Trowbridge, the VP of IB, can you see at least 2 defensive tackles having 4 sacks, 3 linebackers with 6 tackles for loss, and 3 defensive ends with 5+ sacks?
2D tackles having 4 sacks. It's possible. 3 linebackers with 6 tackles for loss. I anticipate that. I'll be disappointed with that. And then 3 DNs with 5+ sacks. I expect that as well.
Yeah.
It actually goes in order from least likely to most likely, in my opinion. That's the order that he gives it in. So if I was buy-sell holding, I'd buy the 3 DNs, I'd hold the linebackers, and I'd sell the D tackles, but I think all are possible this year.
Yeah, I would have the exact same order.
Smart man.
Thank you. I have my moments. From ND since 93, why is everyone making a big deal out of J Love buying a Lamborghini? That man earned it and can afford it.
Everyone isn't doing that because I didn't even know he bought a Lamborghini, nor do I care. If he wants to spend his money on a Lamborghini, that's his right. Jeremiah's overall been pretty smart with his money. I would have advised him not to because I don't think it's practical. I don't think a car there's no reason to have a car that costs that much money other than just vanity. But you know what? So what? If he wants to have that car, like we always think of these things like, oh, this person bought a yacht. Well, you know who's getting paid to work at the company that builds those cars? Some middle class dude trying to put food on his family's table. So you spending that money doesn't change his reality compared to a guy that you bought a $40,000 Hyundai from. You're still supporting workers who are building those things, but I'd say, like, I don't know if that's a great smart purchase, but at the end of the day, it's a few $100,000, probably. What, $400,000 or $500,000? How much does a Lamborghini cost for a guy he could have afforded that based off what he made at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So it's his money. He earned it. He can buy whatever he wants. If I was his business advisor, I'd advise him to have a more practical car. But so what? He wants to do that. Go for it. We all had those cars as kids growing up. Like 10 years ago, if I was making the money I make now, I'd have flat out gone out and bought a brand new Ford Mustang because I love Ford Mustangs. Now, Angela's like, hey, she gave me some goals. If you do this, you can go buy a Ford Mustang, kind of as a joke and something to work towards. And we've kind of got there. And like, I'm not going to go out and spend $50,000 on a second car. To just drive to the grocery store, to the store. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm different now. I look at the world differently now. But if I was Jeremiah Love's age and was a number 3 overall draft pick, I probably would have bought one of those cars I dreamed of when I was playing MASH as a kid. You know what I mean? So it's his business. He earned the money. He gets to buy whatever he wants. I do what you got to do.
The people giving J Love a hard time about that, there is a group of people that make big deals out of things that they can't have. And a Lamborghini for most people is one of the. It's like when I was watching the Hall of Fame stuff for the NFL, and they were in Adam Vinatieri's house, who was a kicker. And he had an indoor basketball gym in his house. And it's like, as a kicker, in what world is it? What's the practical use of that inside of a house? I don't know, but he can. It's like people that get envious of that stuff are the people that can't have it. That car for me, though, by the way, was an Audi R8. That was a car that Tony Stark drove in Iron Man 1. And when I saw that when I was, 11 when that movie came out, I was like, yeah, that's going to be a car that I will own someday. Now looking back on it, it's like that would have been a very dumb purchase, even if I were to ever able to afford a car like that.
Right. There's the dude, do you really need that? No. But so what? Envy is a sad thing. And we all have those moments. We all have those moments of whether it's someone does this, or like when I see somebody get access to interview Marcus Freeman, I have some moments of envy. Like, man, I would do a better job. We all have that in different ways. We all should push against it. But at the end of the day, if he wants to buy a Lamborghini with money he earned through his, do y'all understand how much work went into Jeremiah Love building himself to be this kind of player? Do you know the sacrifices he made at Notre Dame to not spend money, to be smart with his money, to invest his money properly? Good for him. He can do whatever the heck he wants to do. I don't have that envy because I know Jeremiah worked for it. And, and even if he didn't, who cares? It doesn't affect me. Guess what? My car, my Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid does exactly what Jeremiah Love's does. Gets me from this point to that point.
Yep.
It just does a little bit more horsepower, and more people are watching him drive by than they were watching me drive by. But so what? It's his business.
Yeah. The stage of life that you're in strongly dictates what your dream car is. Like for him, it's being I think a single dude and a rookie in the NFL. It's a Lamborghini.
Like, 21 years old, 20. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because I'm applying my 48-year-old, been married 18 years.
Right.
Being smart with money, thinking of retirement, putting money. I was not thinking about that when I was 21 years old. I would have, like I said, bought the car that was on my, my MASH list. Did you play MASH as a kid on the school bus? Do you remember what MASH is? Mm-mm. Where you'd have to pick
who you marry, and
it's like a great one, a medium, and a bad. A mansion, or something in a shack, a Lamborghini, of this, and a Pinto, and then you'd do the thing, and then you'd pick, and so you're married to Chrissy Brinkley, you're driving in a shack, and you've got a Pinto, and it's like, well, if I was married to Chrissy Brinkley, I'd be totally fine, as long, you know what I mean, but if I was married to Mrs. Bender or some, like a teacher or something like that was mean to us, but I had a mansion and a Lamborghini, it's just. It's all these things where you play. And I would have absolutely gone out and bought whatever was my favorite MASH car back then when I was 21. And you know what my dad would have said? Brian, that's not a smart purchase. But you know what my dad would have done if he had that kind of money at 21? He'd have bought whatever cool car he thought he had. You know what I mean? And his dad would have been like, Barry, that's not a real smart purchase. You know what I mean? And it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, mind your own business. You know what I mean? Like, if he wants to buy that car, he can buy that car. And all the people that work at that Lamborghini plant that built that car that get to now continue to have a job because people buy those cars are very happy and thankful that Jeremiah Love and other people like him can afford to buy that car and drive that car. And if you have a problem with it, look in the mirror and deal with your things. Deal with your stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Sorry. Soapbox off of the soapbox.
From Anthony Hans, what freshman wide receiver are you the most excited and hyped for this season or down the road?
Oh, gosh, this is a hard answer because honestly, all of them. I'm serious. In different ways, all of them. But the guy that I would say I'm most excited for this season is Bubba Frazier because I think he's most likely to play and help in certain ways. The guy that I'm most excited about down the road is Caden Finley. Like, I think Caden Finley has a chance. Like, when Jaden Greathouse's time is over, I will very much be looking forward to 18 stepping into that role. Very much so. Or maybe he's outside playing Jordan Faison's position. But I'm very high on Caden Finley. And I'm much more at a place now with Notre Dame receiver where I do feel like they've got the youth where they're going to eventually kind of get this thing going. And then next year you bring in Julius Jones Jr. and Jackson Coleman. And in 28, there's a group of receivers hopefully that you're able to get. Maybe you can get Jalen Adai and guys like that. But right now, look, you could go with Devin Fitzgerald. You can go with Dylan Faison. You could go with Braden Robinson. You could go with Bubba Frazier. I don't care who you go with. They're all good options. But Caden Finley's the one for me that I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to see what he's going to be at some point in time in his Notre Dame career.
Yeah, this year for me, it's Bubba Frazier. Down the road, it's D Fitz. I've been riding that train.
You're going to keep doing it. And he goes and does his dad's thing, and then he comes back and he's getting, these mossing people on these highlight stuff they're putting out. So yeah, that's it. So Trev, is there one that I could have said that you'd be like, seriously, that's the guy you're excited about? No, not one. That's the thing I love about this group. If I said Dylan Faison, you'd be like, oh, okay, I can see that. Mm-hmm. He's a taller, faster version of his brother.
I was about to say a 6'2" Jordan Faison. Darn.
6'2" faster Jordan. Okay, sure. Sign me up. It's like all five of them could be dynamic guys. But Caden's the one that I think just long-term, I just think could be a real special dude.
Absolutely. From Archer, do you think the existence of fringe local media outlets make Notre Dame more hesitant to give them access? In the OSU realm, 11 Warriors and Letterman Row are okay, but Buckeye Scoop is egregious.
Just don't give those people access. If there's these fringe sites, don't give people access.
Right.
It's that simple. Like sets, there's got to be some standard. You have to do this, this, and this. So okay, you have to have an editorial page. You have to do this. You have to do that. If you run a podcast, you also have an editorial page, and your podcast has to have X amount of subscribers before we'll allow you to kind of use that platform to, have a coach on or a player on or get a credential or whatever the case may be. And then you set standards and you say, hey, these are the rules. You got to do this. And by standards, I don't mean you can't be critical of Marcus Freeman. You can't be critical of this person. That's nonsense. You have no right to tell people what they can and can't say in that regard. But you can say, hey, Driscoll, could you please stop describing, how Notre Dame executed this certain coverage in practice? Could you please not give a detailed breakdown for all opponents to see, for Wisconsin to read about the 7 plays Notre Dame ran in their 2-minute drill? So Notre Dame ran 2 minutes. They did this first drive. They lined up in a 3-by-1, and they did this, this, and this. And then the defense on the second play rolled to this. CJ checked to this, and no, dude, don't give that. Like, you don't need. I could say, hey, they ran an out cut and hit. It was a great throw and great, but I'm not going to break down. So they ran this concept. They ran this alert route, and they isolated this guy with this, and they did this, 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 and this. Don't do that. That's not helpful to us, and your fans don't need that. And so I'd say, okay, that is fair game. Or, hey, don't talk about injuries that happen in practice. I think that would be a very fair thing for Notre Dame to require from people. And if you break that rule, you get one warning, you do it again, you lose access for a couple weeks, and you do it a third time, you're out. And not that one thing, but these are the non-negotiables. You can't do these. And the third time you do one of those, you're done. And do stuff like that. And that'd be totally fair. because they're not telling you like how to cover the team. They're saying things like, dude, this is not beneficial. This is why we don't want you to be here. I don't want, for example, there was a talk of Don Schuler getting hurt in practice the other day. We didn't talk about it because, number one, he came back. But number two, let's say something happened to Adon. I don't want Mr. Schuler and Mrs. Schuler finding out that Adon tore his Achilles from me. I want them finding, because I tweeted it right after practice. I want them finding out from Adon or someone at Notre Dame that calls them on Adon's behalf. That's how they should find out. So if Notre Dame wanted to set that standard, I'm totally supportive of that. Hey, Driscoll, man, you can't describe these things in the great detail in the check that CJ made against this specific coverage because that's why we don't want people to practice. Oh, fair. Okay, you got it. Won't do that again. I'll be more, and then I would probably follow up. Hey, okay, so would a better way of explaining it, would this be okay? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So if some of those, other sites aren't willing to respect that, or they're not running real journalism, or they're doing nothing but clickbait crap, and they're reporting about injuries and stuff like that, then okay, that's fine. Don't credential them. So that there's a lot of things we could say that are excuses why Notre Dame does what they do that I would find understandable, but that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it to control narratives and to make sure that their platforms are the only place you can find certain things. That's why they're doing it. So limiting the scope of who you allow in is different than limiting the scope of what everyone has access to. And if you're saying, well, we aren't going to let Letterman Row and 11 Warriors have access because Buckeye Scoop does this, that's nonsense. That's you using that platform to punish these platforms because you're looking for you're looking for an excuse to cut everybody off. Because if it was about anything else, you would just say, you're done. And so like they did this thing long time ago where they were starting to let us come to practice. And they said one rule: you can't ask about or report on in any way injuries that happen at practice. And there was one guy there who did not want to be there because he had to drive every day from Chicago to come to Notre Dame. He had no desire to come to practice every single day from Chicago, but he knew he could not come to practice because his job was to cover Notre Dame. So what did he do the first practice availability? He asked about Darren Walls getting hurt. And we lost access. That was stupid because one guy that didn't want to be there asked a question he knew would mean we couldn't come to practice anymore. And then you let him get away with that because they always wanted that objective because they knew somebody was going to do something and then they were going to kick us all out as opposed to you can't come back anymore. So that's why I say is like, you can get the result you want if you create a standard that is, is going to let that joke organization in because they're going to violate rules that you can then use to punish everyone. As opposed to, we want to give you all more access, but we have certain standards that we want. And if you violate these repeatedly enough, 2-3 times, then you're out. But if we don't violate those rules, or if Irish Illustrated doesn't violate those rules, or if Blue and Gold doesn't violate those rules, why are we being punished because this other site did, or this other company did, or this other platform did? You know what I mean? Because the South Bend Tribune constantly does. Why are we all being punished for that? Because it ain't about that. It's about we're going to use that group to limit everything is why you would do it. So that's my 2 cents on that.
We're rolling here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We have the Friday free-for-all mailbag going on. Have some great questions so far.
So we have a super chat from Daily Comments who says, answer Archer's pontification question, please. Haha. In response earlier to the comment about someone said yes or no answer with no, they didn't want to hear any of our thoughts on it. They just wanted yes or no. And so, of course, Archer, being Archer, responded with this.
With the utmost pontification, will these coaches be fired by the end of the year? We'll go one by one here. Mike Norvell at Florida State.
Real quick, Trev. Do you really want to tell me Brian Driscoll to use the utmost pontification. Do you understand that that means the next 3 segments of Mailbag will be answering just this question? I mean, I'm a little wordy, Trev. I've been told I'm a little wordy.
Hey, I'm pleading the fifth on this one, brother.
We'll give you the best answer possible. So, Trev, you said we had different answers on this. So I said no, you said yes. So I'll allow you to say your yes first.
Yeah, when I see a team, and with the transfer portal, you always have to insert the caveat if it's a different team every year. But when I see a team actively quit on a coach, that is not a good sign. I don't see that being different because you have a new face with a new last name in on your roster this year. There is something systemically wrong with Florida State's program, and I just don't think Mike Norvell is the guy. I think he gets fired at either some point this year or during this year. And if he isn't, I don't think it has anything to do with a buyout. I don't think it has anything to do with his contract or the level of coaches available, because you could hire me to go have a team not buy into me halfway through the season if you want at Florida State. But if they don't, that tells me that Florida State as an institution doesn't care about football. And I don't know if they're there quite yet. So that's why I'm saying yes, I think Mike Norvell's out after this year, because I do not see a turnaround happening under him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I love your caveat, because your caveat's kind of the reason that I'm saying no, because I do think they kind of got rid of a lot of the bad and brought in some good. And I think there's some guys coming back, and I think their schedule is challenging enough to where they can get away being 8-4, 9-3, and that being considered a getting them back in the right direction. Because
Sure.
I think Florida State at the end of the day, their donors don't want to spend the money to buy him out yet, but they're not giving him the money to succeed yet because they don't have faith in him. So how prone will they be on booting him if he goes 9-3? You know, and I don't know that they're going to go 9-3, Trev. I have no idea. But when I look at Florida State's schedule, and you say, you know, it could be a thing where he's done by the end of the end of September, but it's also a situation where, you know, what if they beat SMU? And what if they go down to Tuscaloosa and give Alabama a game, and then they beat Central Arkansas, and then they beat Louisville or Virginia? Now all of a sudden they're 4-1 with a win over a ranked SMU team, and then they've got at Louisville, at Miami, home against Clemson. I think they could lose all 3 of those games. I could also see them going 2-1 in those games. You know, Friday night game at Louisville, I could see Louisville maybe overlooking Florida State a little bit if Florida State's if they don't respect them, or I could see Florida State just playing out of their minds and beating them. They go play at Miami, get beat. It's competitive. And then they come home and they beat Clemson. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there and Florida State's 5-2, and the rest of their schedule is at Boston College, at Pitt, home against NC State, and at Florida. Would you be shocked if they go 9-3 against that? No, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not predicting it, but I wouldn't be shocked by it because there's still talent there. 9-3 now, all of a sudden with some decent wins, you're like, okay, let's see what he can do, and let's maybe give him some more money. I think it would be prolonging the inevitable, but I think it would be one where there'd be a justification to not spend the money to buy him out. So that's why I say no. I just don't think they want to spend the money to buy him out. It'd be cheaper to just invest in the program and give him $30 million to spend on next year's roster as opposed to $50-60 million buyout.
Sure.
But he's got to give you a reason to have the optimism to do that. And I think that's, maybe they could do. So that's why I said no, but I won't be shocked if your answer. Let's go Dave Aranda. I think we both said he will be fired by the end of the year.
Yep.
I believe, right? For me, Trev, I just don't think that he did some things this year in the offseason. I think going out and getting DJ Lagway was a smart move because it's a hope buy on that one. You know what I mean? Like you're taking that chance on a kid who's really talented that he can stay healthy and get it figured out. But I just don't know if they've done enough around him to be successful enough to win. I mean, the reality is in the last 4 years, they've had one winning season. Is 6-6 going to be the thing where it's like, okay, let's keep spending money on the football team, on this coach? I don't know. I think they've got to have an 8+ win season, and I just don't know if that's who they are, Trev. I don't know. And then I look at their schedule, and they've got to play Auburn in Atlanta the first game. They've got to play at Arizona State, at Kansas, at UCF, at BYU, at Houston, and then they get Texas Tech, Iowa State, and TCU at home. They have one of the tougher Big 12 schedules on top of having to play Auburn in Atlanta. I just don't know if 8-4 bettors what I see there. But if he does, then I could see them keeping him.
I think Baylor, I'm looking it up right now. Their over under win total on FanDuel is 6.5. Do you think if he's at 6 or 7, do you think that would be enough for him to keep his job?
At
Or
6, no. 7, maybe. 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 But it would also be, when does that happen? Like, do you start off well? Do you maybe, beat Auburn to start the season, lose at Arizona State, beat TCU, and all of a sudden you're sitting there at 5-1, and you go 7-5 because you then lose at Kansas, lose at BYU, lose at Houston, and lose at home to Texas Tech, all in really competitive games? Maybe. Hey guys, we're close. Give us another 10 million and we're going to be able to take this thing over the top. Maybe. But if it's like 7-5 with like 3 blowouts to all the good teams you played all at the end of the year, that would. But I think 8-4 gets them feeling like, okay, going in the right direction. That's what I think.
how about Mike Locksley at Maryland?
Man, did you see the injury that they had at the end? That sucks. Zahir Mathis, really good young player. We talked about them being a sleeper D-line.
Yeah.
And he was one of the reasons for it. But he's out for the year. Look, I just think they've given him a lot of chances, and they've been very patient with him because I've heard he's a really decent guy. I've only had one interaction with Mike Locksley. Here's a funny story. So I was working Maryland's camp back in the day when they had like the overnight camps, and we'd go. Coaches like me would go because we're recruiting kids there. We're trying to meet kids that we can then recruit. And Maryland was one of my states. So it was like him, Bill O'Brien, James Franklin were all on the staff back then. And so I went to shower like an idiot, left my room unlocked, and some kid came out and stole like $500 of cash out of my room, some camper. So I, talked to the coaches about it, and Mike Locksley walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, sorry about that. It's just unfortunate, and he pulls out his wallet, gets $500 out, gives me $500. He didn't have to do that.
It's
You know
cool.
what I mean? Like, he didn't have to do that. And he wasn't like, "Hey, don't say anything." You know what I mean? It wasn't anything like that. It's like, "Hey man, we're sorry about that. You're working our camp. We're going to make you right. We're going to make it right for you." That was decent everything I'm going to do. And so, yeah, I respected that. And he seemed like a really nice guy. That was my only interactions were around that team. He seemed like a good guy. And he was the one that was always in the dorms with the kids and stuff like that and getting to know people. And so he's always seemed like a good guy to me. And I've heard he's well liked in the coaching profession. So I think Maryland's been patient with him, but I just don't know that this team has what it takes to really get over the hump. I do think if he can just get them to a bowl game, I think that could be enough for them to say, "Hey, listen, let's give him the money he needs to keep Malik here for another year and this young D-line here for another year." Because if he can get back to kind of where they were from like 21 to 23 when they were like going to bowl game every year, I think if Mike Locksley's taking Maryland to a bowl game every year, I think they're happy.
Yeah.
At least they should be happy, but you can't not make bowl games every year. Got to give us some reason for hope. And so I just don't know that in a good Big Ten he's going to be able to do that. But if he can do that, and then maybe that is what the boosters need to say, "Hey, let's pony up to make sure we don't lose Malik Washington." Because if Malik comes out after the season, it's like, "Hey, I'm running it back one more year." Now all of a sudden, hey, let's go get this receiver. Let's go get this guy, because now Malik Washington, after his second year, is the guy that kids maybe want to come play for. Oh, this cat's staying at Maryland. And then you've got a head coach who's always been known as a good recruiter, who's a guy that, kids like. Maybe that's enough to, them to go out there and get some weapons. And then maybe in 27, they go out and win 8, 9, maybe 10 games. So I right now I say no, but I wouldn't mind being wrong about that one.
No, I think that's fair. One of the things that he does have going for him, something that you mentioned, just kind of like the standard at what each program is. And unlike Florida State, unlike Baylor to a degree, Wisconsin to a degree, South Carolina to a degree, the standard at Maryland is not, you better get to the playoffs. You better compete to win the Big Ten. It's, to your point, bowl game every year. Maybe if you come across that one veteran team, you pull off a couple of big upsets in the Big Ten, spoil some other people's seasons, get 8, 9 wins in there. I'm with you completely. So I'm pulling for Mike Locksley as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking in the Big Ten, how about Luke Fickell at Wisconsin? I believe you and I both said no on this one, on if he'll be fired, correct?
Yes, I think Wisconsin's going to be a good team this year. I think they're going to make a bowl game. I think they're going to be more competitive against some of the better teams. Like I don't think their offense is going to be able to do much against Notre Dame in the opener. But I think their defense is going to be salty and could maybe make it to where Notre Dame doesn't come out and put 50 on the board in week 1. You know what I mean? And I think their schedule set up, and I don't know that Wisconsin's a state that is like, rolling in dough right now, where I don't know that they want to pay the buyout. And I think if he can show a big jump and go 7-5 this year, I think that's going to get people to say, hey, we're heading in the right direction. Let's keep this thing going. And I think they have a shot to do that this year.
Agreed. Yep.
And that's the same thing with Shane Beamer. Like Shane Beamer's the most like schizophrenic coach in the business. They go 3-9 one year, 9-3 the next. And I just think when I look at the talent on that football team, Trev, there's no excuse for them not to be an 8-win football team this year. And so I could just see them kind of putting it all together. I think Lenore Sellers is like, there's a debate we can have. I'm not someone who thinks he's this elite quarterback. I don't see that. I think he's got elite tools. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, but I think he's much better than he was last year. When we talked about this in 24, if he doesn't get hurt against LSU, I think they beat LSU in 24. And then they'd have been 10-2 and in the playoffs. So I think they're closer. I think he's closer to that year version of Lenore Sellers than what he was last year. I just don't think he's got this elite level to get to as a processor or a player, but he's got weapons around him. He's got good receivers coming back. Their offensive line took a big blow, losing one of their starting offensive linemen in the offseason, and they weren't that good there to begin with. But I think their defense could be salty. I think that Lenore Sellers, if he can stay healthy, is going to be better than he was last year. And I think this is going to be an 8-win caliber team, which I think is enough to keep Shane Beamer. Anything worse than 8-4 is I think he's out. But I like what they're going to do this year. And Bill O'Brien, we both think they're going to be terrible again, and he's going to be out.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien, I think, is probably the only coach on this list that I could – well, maybe not the only coach. Out of all the coaches on this list, he has the highest probability of not making it to the end of the year, I would say.
Yep. All right. Let's get to this question from Jay Melvin.
Brian, do you see DJ McKinney having a similar role to Kobe Bryant in the 2021 Cincinnati defense, being sort of a Robin to Batman? Well, Kobe Bryant won the Thorpe.
Yeah, he shouldn't have, but yes. He could. Yeah, he could. He could certainly do that, Jay Melvin. He's got to win the starting job first.
Yeah.
And I don't think Jaden Sanders is going to give that to him, but I could certainly see that. I think that's the talent level he has, and I think him coming to a place where he actually has to compete for a starting job is going to give him a chance to maximize his talent. And if he plays to his full potential, he could absolutely be that.
Yeah.
100%. If he just repeats what he did in 2024, playing opposite, Batman that year, which was Travis Hunter, that's a heck of an offseason pickup. Heck of an offseason pickup.
Yeah. In an ideal world, we're talking about Batman and Superman, not Batman and Robin. But superhero analogies aside, I also very much agree.
Yep. All right. Irishman 7114. I'm trying to pull. There it is. It wouldn't come up, Trev. It's trying. I just noticed. Is that a cake? I just noticed that.
It looks
is that
like
a cake?
I don't know.
Awesome.
I'm hungry, so it might not be a cake. It could be a poster for a wall, and I'm just hungry.
We're both hungry. I think maybe that's it. It might just be a magnet.
I was about to say that might be a zoomed-in refrigerator magnet, but you had me at refrigerator. Look, man, I'm hungry. But no, so from Irishman 7114, in quarterback development, how much can a coach do in spring and fall versus how much is just developing over time and taking live reps?
I think a coach can do a ton. I mean, look, coaching is about all of those things. Coaching is about what you do in the film room. It's about what you do on the chalkboard. It's about what you do in individual drills. It's about what you do in walkthrough, all to building them to have the tools they need to be successful when it gets to the live reps. And then when the live reps come, they have some wins, they have some losses, and then you show them this is why you won on this rep compared to why you didn't win on this rep. For example, I'm teaching a receiver, you get inside leverage on or outside leverage on a receiver, and you're trying to run a post. You can't just run to the post because that guy's just going to open up and stay right underneath you. But if you give this hard jab outside, and so then you have two reps that we have in one-on-ones. You ran this one this way and you won. You ran that one that way, and I can show you with those live reps, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Or it's You did it to him in one-on-ones, but when we got to team, you got impatient, and then you were sloppy with the route, and this is why you recovered. And then you have reps to show them, but you don't just throw them out there in live reps like, all right, have at it, and let's see what you do. It's all the building blocks to get you to the point where they can then be successful in live reps. And then the live reps are the best tool to show them where they are and then to correct the mistakes. But it's all those other things you're doing to build there to put them in position to be successful.
That makes sense. From Mac Irish, can we get some thoughts on Matt Jeffrey? Does he work into this lineup? I've heard he's had a great fall camp. How do you see him being utilized?
I mean, he has had a good fall camp, but again, people just take little small nuggets of little bit of access of practice where he's did some good things. He had 2 great diving catches in the first practice, and then they turned it into, oh, he's doing this or he's doing that. The reality is we don't know how Matt Jeffrey's doing, but what I can tell you is Matt Jeffrey, as we have said before, is an elite athlete or an outstanding athlete. Will he work into the 2 deep? He's got a shot. I mean, Marcus Freeman has talked about Matt Jeffrey plenty of times in the past. He's got a shot. He played last year when they needed a blocker. Who'd they bring in last year? Matt Jeffrey. So he certainly has a chance to crack the lineup. More than I thought he would coming into fall camp because he wasn't here in spring. I was like, he's going to have a tough time, but he's come in and worked his tail off this offseason, and he's put himself in position to battle for a job. But I don't view that as a bad thing. If he outplays other players, then that means he's a good player. It doesn't mean that – there's 2 ways you can look at a situation. One is a guy like Matt Jeffrey, who was an elite lacrosse recruit, like top 10 national recruit, if I remember correctly. Outstanding athlete. Came in last year, did some things blocking-wise. The Arkansas secondary knows what kind of athlete Matt Jeffrey is. And let's say he works in the 2 deep. You can look, freaking, this guy sucks and that guy sucks. And how do you let a walk-on step in? How's he any different than Jordan Faison? How's he any different than Jordan Faison? Other than Jordan Faison did it right away. He's taller, maybe a little faster than Jordan Faison. So if he is a backup receiver in the 2 deep, that means he earned it and he beat out some good football players. That's a good thing. That's not something to be upset about. That's a good thing. Now, will he do that? I don't know. But he's in the battle. More so than I thought. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, guys, I tried to tell you this summer, Matt Jeffrey's going to be a factor at Notre Dame. I didn't. You know what I mean? I didn't think he'd be a factor, but I don't think him being a factor is because everybody else sucks. I think because Matt's playing his tail off, and he's a big-time athlete. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, I agree. At the bare minimum, he definitely has a shot to make the receiver rotation. At the bare minimum, he's a special teams phenom. Yeah. At the minimum. Yeah,
we tried to tell you guys all summer he was a legit dude. And no, I don't know what happened to all the summer shows and why they're no longer available on YouTube. So I'm not sure what happened to those shows where you could look back and find the episodes where we told you guys something that you don't remember us telling you this summer, which is that Matt Jeffrey was going to be a stud. You guys just clearly missed that because all those shows somehow just disappeared from our channel.
I mean, we had it on our outline. I have it written down right here. I'm going to hold it far enough away to where you guys can't see it. But it was written down right there, dude.
We totally saw this coming.
I mean, come on. That's why you need to be a premium message board subscriber. Boards that
I don't know why all 315 of the current subscribers listening right now don't remember us saying that. I'm positive we did.
Guys, how many times has Brian told you to stay on topic in the chat? It's to avoid when we get to things like this.
Exactly. You guys clearly all missed the Matt Jeffrey hype we had during the summer.
Talk about Devil's Wears Prada or something. Yeah. We were breaking it down with Matt Jeffrey, dude.
Yeah. That was not what we were predicting. But you know what? That's awesome. And if that's not what you're predicting, there's a world in which Matt Jeffrey being a 2D player is a bad thing. Because, he just does his job and he knows what he's doing and he doesn't make mistakes. And you're just putting him out there because he doesn't make mistakes. That's a bad place to be. But I don't think that's why he's having a good fall camp. I think if he's having a good fall camp, it's because his athleticism is resulting in him making plays.
Yeah, with the level of depth on this team across every position group, if somebody earns a spot somewhere, it is keyword there is earned. It's not because everybody else is just bad. It's a good thing. I'm with you completely.
By the way, my dad just texted me and he said his two what were they?
Guilty pleasure movies?
Guilty pleasure movies are Harlem Nights and Blazing Saddles. That's my dad's two.
Ooh, okay.
I don't view Harlem Nights as a guilty pleasure. I think it's a great movie.
I was just about to say,
those are the two for my dads. My dad
Nice.
loved Harlem. My mom. It's funny because my dad, as a kid, my dad didn't cuss when he was mad at us. Like, and the couple times he did, it was like you almost wanted to laugh. My my dad was like not a cusser. My mom was a sailor. But so then the first time I watched Harlem Nights with my dad, I was like, oh, this is not going to be good. Like my dad's going to be like really offended by this. And he's over there just because my dad's a silent laugher. Him and his brother Reed are both silent laughers. They will shake violently and like this, but they don't make noise. I'm looking at my dad, he's just dying laughing, especially when Red Fox is talking. We got you, all you blind mother.
Oh, that's so good.
I love that movie. It's so good. Oh, you're gonna shoot me in my pinky toe. Oh, I love that movie. Oh, yeah. So, yes, if that's a guilty pleasure movie, then it is also one of mine. Great movie.
From Raphael B. Will a Notre Dame receiver score 7+ touchdowns this season? I think it's a must for a championship run.
I think so. Look, I think if Jaden Greathouse is healthy, he'll score 7 or more touchdowns. I mean, he's led the team in touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 years. The 2 years that he's played a full season, he's led the team in touchdown receptions. And those are for 2 offenses that didn't necessarily throw as much as I think what this team is going to do, especially in the red zone. So, yeah, I think you'll see that.
Yep, I also agree.
I think you'll see that. Yep, agree. All right, let's get to some more here, Trev. We got one from Timecone.
If Notre Dame isn't currently deep on safety, where would Notre Dame go internally to fill in? Aside from corner, should they come from some fast wide receiver or linebacker?
I don't know, not linebacker, no. I don't know that they necessarily need to worry about that this year unless there's injuries. But if there's injuries, I think the first player I turn to is Aiden Pouncey. Did you guys see the hit he laid on Javion Osborne in the film that they put out the other day?
Sure did.
If you read the intel piece, now this is something we did report. We were having fun, like pretending that we knew Matt Jeffrey all along was going to be competing for a 2 deep spot, even though we never talked about him this summer. But this is one that we have talked about because this was in an intel piece that I did on the board where one of the intel pieces was how surprisingly strong Aiden Pouncey is, which is why I think he's the first person I would go to. He's rangy. He's really three things I've heard about Aiden Pouncey. Beyond the obvious, he's tall, long. Okay, I don't need somebody to tell me that. Surprisingly strong, super competitive, and really smart, like football guy, really smart. That fit, I mean, okay, tall, rangy, strong, and smart. What position on defense sounds like you need someone like that? Safety. That'd be the first place I'd go. And you're so deep at corner that you could live with. You could handle not having him at corner if you needed to do that. That would be the first place I would go if you had a need. And then that's something I would consider anyway in the offseason. Because I think you're going to lose your 2 starters after this year. I think they're going to both be in the NFL next year. I could be wrong. That's not inside information. That's just my opinion. That's where I think they're going to both be in the NFL next year.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that's my 2 cents on that. I do think we had a couple. Go ahead, Trev.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. The only thing that I always say, and this is just a core principle of mine, unless it's just such an obvious fit, I don't like switching players from sides of the ball to fill a need on defense.
Sure.
Like in general, now we've seen it work out obviously with Xavier Watts. That's why I understand Timecone, you asking about safety going from wide receiver. So there's a piece to that, but just in general, a core principle of mine is I don't want to have to do that to completely rob an entire different position group from the opposite side of the ball. But if it becomes obvious, then sure.
Or it's like a dire need, and you have a guy like Xavier Watts, who was a great high school safety, but I don't know if you really have that at receiver. I mean, who's the guy you have a receiver that was a really good, defensive player in high school? I don't know who that is. Now, another guy that I would look at would be Dallas Golden. Because we've talked about Dallas as a guy that I could see playing all 5 secondary positions. That'd be another one that I would look at.
I could see that.
But I think he's going to be your starting nickel next year. That's why I wouldn't necessarily move him, but yeah.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, Tyler. Who do you think will take the biggest leap this year, CJ Bailey or Malik Washington, and why?
I'm going to go with Malik Washington simply because I think he has more room to get better, and I think he's going to have a better supporting cast around him. I love CJ Bailey, but I'm just curious to see what he has around him. How's the supporting cast going to be this year? But I think they're both going to be really good quarterbacks this year. I think Malik's will be a little bit more noticeable.
That same exact reason I'm going Malik Washington because of his supporting cast.
Yep. All right, let's get to another super chat here from Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts.
Appreciate the super chat, Lou. Across college football, which program or programs would you like to see return to greater prominence and relevance than where they are today?
So which programs would you like to see return to greater Nebraska? I would like to see Nebraska return to greater prominence. If USC was not led by a bunch of cowards, I would say USC. I think when USC is also really good, they are the true West Coast power, with all due respect to Oregon. USC is the true West Coast power. I just don't want to see them be rewarded right now for being led by a bunch of cowards. So that would be one. Florida State is another. I think when they're rolling, they're a great counterweight to the SEC. When they and Miami are both rolling, they're a big counterweight to the SEC. I also wish that if Miami and Florida State could get back to being what they were, that might be enough to save the ACC if they were both willing to stay in the ACC.
Sure.
Which I don't know that they are. Those would be some that I would like to see that. I'd like to see an East Coast power kind of reemerge. Penn State could potentially fall in that, but if, Pitt, Boston College, Syracuse used to have top 10 teams all the time. We were talking about this the other day, Trev, but remember that great Miami team in 2001, Miami team. One of their biggest wins that year was over Syracuse, a really good Syracuse team. They beat number 15 Syracuse in November. And Syracuse every year used to be a ranked football team. And, whether it was under Paul Pasqualoni, but even more so before Paul Pasqualoni. So like from 91 to 98, they were ranked at the end of the year 11, 6, 19, 21, 21, 25. They were 14th in 2001. But then even before that, they had some really good teams in the 80s under Dick McPherson. They were ranked 4th overall in 1987, 13th overall in 1988. They used to have great quarterbacks, Marvin Graves, or Paul McPherson, who was one of the quarterbacks under Dick McPherson. And then obviously Donovan McNabb. So they had some really good quarterbacks back in the day. They used to be a really good team, really good Big East caliber team if they could have been good during the Big East era. But, somebody like that, I like balance, regional balance of like having a power in each region. And, technically you could maybe make a case that Ohio State and Michigan are Eastern powers, but I'm talking like somewhat coastal. So maybe Pitt's that team. They're not really coastal, but maybe a BC, a Syracuse, where they're at least consistently a perennial top 15 team. Of Virginia Tech, I would put under that. They're, Blacksburg's not on the coast, but the state that they are in is a coastal power. Just things like that to kind of balance out some of the leagues is what I would love to see.
Yeah, a couple of them were just kind of those prominent powers when I was growing up. I just have fond memories of some of the teams. Like West Virginia is one of those teams for me. I remember in 2012 when they had Geno Smith and Stedman Bailey and Tavon Austin, and like Carl Joseph was one of their safeties. So I'd probably go like West Virginia would be on that list for me. I think Stanford would be on that list for me. Auburn, I think they're a fun SEC team. I liked having that. I grew up watching a bunch of crazy Iron Bowl games. So Auburn is another one of those programs for me. Florida State's in there for sure. Yeah, Michigan State, seeing them return to prominence. Outside of that, I got nothing else.
I like Sparty. The Auburn one's good because I want counterweights. You want the counterweights to create balance. When Michigan is good, they're a counterweight to Ohio State and vice versa. When Florida is good, they're a counterweight to Georgia. When Miami's good or Florida State is good, they're counterweights to the SEC dominating the region. And what counterweights mean is not only do they have wins on the field, but they also have wins off the field.
Yeah,
which prevents the elite talent from being kind of
hoarded by
into one or two teams, and so that's why I think those things are good. It's good for the sport, it's good for conferences, and it's mainly though it's good for the sport when that's the case. And then you want teams like Notre Dame and Ohio State and Texas and Alabama to remain good. That's another. Clemson to remain. Like Clemson was great under Dabo, and they hadn't been great for a long time, but it's not like Clemson hadn't had some moments in the past where they were. When I was a kid, before Florida State became a powerhouse and joined the ACC in the 90s, Clemson had some really good teams. I mean, Clemson won a natty in 1981. They were a top 10 team in 1982. They were a top 10 team in 1988. They were ranked 6th in 1978. They were ranked 8th in 1982, 11th, 17th, 12th. So they've got some history and tradition there. It's not like they're a program that's like never been good, all over the years. So like there's been plenty of years where Clemson was a really good football team and had some tradition and had some history. And so it's good when there's teams like that or exist, especially when they're in different leagues. Like, when I was a kid, you had Nebraska was the Big Eight power, and then you had the Big Ten had Michigan was always really good. Ohio State had some good years. The SEC was Alabama, Florida, had some were really good. The Southwest Conference, Texas A&M was like the dominant Southwest Conference team when I was a kid. Texas was good, but not A&M was like that team in the 80s. And in the 70s, it was more so Texas. But, the ACC had Clemson for a long time, and then they went through a down stretch, and then the ACC kind of faltered, and then they added Florida State, and then they were that powerful team. And I liked the sport when that was the case. The Pac-8 used to have, like UCLA used to be really good on top of USC. Washington had some really good teams. So I like it when the power's spread out that way, where it's not just two conferences. But the problem now is they're hoarding all the kind of the big time programs into the two conferences, where all those teams that we just talked about are now in one league, two leagues. You've got USC's in the Big Ten, UCLA's in the Big Ten, Oregon's in the Big Ten, Texas is in the SEC, Oklahoma's in the SEC, Missouri's in the SEC, Arkansas's in the SEC, Nebraska's in the Big Ten, Penn State's in the Big Ten. That's not good for the sport. It's good for their bottom line, but it's not good for the sport, in my opinion. And yet, Notre Dame won the Natty in 1988. I've said this before. There were 24 independent teams. They included Miami, Florida State, Penn State, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, Pitt, Cincinnati, Memphis, teams like that. It was because you only had 7 conference games or 8 conference games in a lot of those sports. The Big Ten was the anomaly back then, where they had 9 conference games. They were the anomaly. The SEC had for a while 10 teams, 8 teams, but they didn't. It was different, man. It's different back then, and it's not good. It's not good. So this is kind of messed up here. NH says, I understand the FSU at Florida State answer, but personally, I want them to be irrelevant forever. That's harsh because her husband's a Florida State fan. So that is rough, NH. That is real rough. But I can respect that. I've met you and your husband. I can respect that competitiveness in the household. That's respectful, right? I dig that. I dig that.
I respect that.
Yeah.
Super chat from Patrick Duffy. Appreciate you. Right now, who's considered the number 2 quarterback?
They don't have one right now. It's a battle between Teddy Gerard and Noah Grubbs. And a week into fall camp, if that had been decided in a week, it's most likely because everybody else stunk except for one guy.
Yeah.
So it's still a battle between the 2 freshmen. That's where it's at right now. See, we got a few more super chats here. We got one from Gloric.
Appreciate the super chat. My dad and I just got tickets for the Miami game. Can't wait to finally see my first game in Notre Dame Stadium. It's been a long time coming. What a heck of a first game.
Right?
Dude.
Yes. Well, you're also going to have to come to the Irish Breakdown tailgate because we will be tailgating that day. So you're going to have to be there. So that is awesome. That is a heck of a game to have as your first one. Mine was 07 USC when they got beat 38-0. So I have a feeling yours is going to be a little bit better than mine. I know you've said this before. What was your first game?
06 UCLA.
06 UCLA. You son of a biscuit. Tell you what.
Super chat from Riley Erdman. Appreciate you. Finished the magazine in my spare time. Well done, gents. So happy I subscribed to the website. Very detailed, very enjoyable.
Thank you very much. And obviously, if you are a subscriber to Irish Breakdown, you do have access to the magazine. If you're on the mobile, you just click on menu. It's right there at the top, 2026 football preview. If you are on the desktop, you just click on ib.com. It's right there at the top. 2000 Notre Dame. What was it? It's Notre Dame. Let me just give you the specific name for it. It's 2026 football preview is what it's called. And if you're not a subscriber, I'm telling you guys, it's turned out so much better even than I thought it was going to turn out. And the people that have read it absolutely love it. So you're going to definitely want to watch that. Definitely want to watch that.
Super chat from ND Milton fan. Appreciate you. For both of you, who despises BK more between you two at IB? And what is one question you would ask BK if he had to answer it honestly?
Only one, huh? Whew. Well, Trevor, I don't want to speak for Trevor. I would be hard pressed to find someone who despises Brian Kelly more than I do, because Brian Kelly basically tried to do things that affected my ability to run my business and put food on the table, and I don't like that. So it's personal for me with Brian Kelly also. Now, I have never criticized him because I personally dislike him. We'll give him credit when he's earned credit. I defended him when he needed to be defended, even though I personally did not like him. There are people on the Notre Dame staff right now that you may not realize, but that I don't necessarily care for very much as people, but I will defend them because they do their job and do it well. And that's the criteria. No matter what I may think of you as a human being, if you do your job well, I will praise you for it. And if you don't, I will criticize you for it. Just like there are coaches that I've been very fond of over the years that you still have to criticize because that's your job. But personally, I dislike him very much for a host of reasons. And it's because of those things. So, but, Trev, I don't know. You tell me. You and I have had conversations about Brian Kelly. Who do you think despises him more?
I mean, you
I'm
do.
not proud of this, by the way. I'm not bragging. Hey, guess what? I hate someone. It's just, I'm going to be honest about it, though.
Yeah, it's look, I don't like Brian Kelly from the one crappy interaction I had with him at a camp once, and for what he did to Notre Dame, knowing what I know now. I grew up in that generation of I was just told that at 12 years old, this is just what Notre Dame was.
Yep.
And so I didn't have the animosity towards him in the current time. I was up until about midway through 2015, like a BK defender. Cause guys, we went undefeated. Like we played for the national title just
And
against
you
a
grew up in the
generational
Davy
team.
Ty Charlie era.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, guys, like some of my best, like I just got done saying, my first Notre Dame game that I went to was in 2006. The season following was very dark times. So going 8-5, going 12-0, but then getting blasted in the national title game was 10 times better than what I experienced in 2007. So that's where it came from. Mine was more so hindsight. It wasn't in the moment. So it wouldn't be me. But if I had to answer one question, or if I got to ask him one question that he had to answer honestly, I'd probably ask him if he actually thought he was a championship caliber head coach. Like, be real. Like,
mine would be along those lines. But do you actually think you did everything you could to build Notre Dame up? Or, you know what I mean? That would be mine. That'd be mine.
Getting into the home stretch here of the Friday free-for-all mailbag here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Great questions so far today. So much so we're getting through one more segment here before we get to the weekend. Great questions, though.
Great questions today. I just want to bring one more up, Trev, before we go to this last one about from Lou Holtz Thunder and Bolts. Somebody in the chat said, brought up Washington. Yeah, Washington used to be a really good West Coast power. The reason Washington isn't one that right now I think is important is because you do have a Northwest power right now. It's Oregon. Where there is nobody in the Bible Belt right now that's rolling, which is why I would like to see Nebraska get back to being that. You know what I mean? Like, there isn't that Cali team that's great, which is why I would want UCLA to be there. But like, Washington and Oregon are more northwestern powers, more so than West Coast. Because like when USC's good, it like the whole from the mountains over, it's like that's USC is the dominant team. Where maybe Oregon get there, get there, but like they're from the same region, so you already have one there. So that's why I don't know that I would say Washington, but like if Washington was good, go for it because that only makes it better. But again, now it's like, do you really need it? Because you've got one Northwest power in the Big Ten already. Do you need a second? That's what makes it kind of lame with the leagues being what they are. But
yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, and he said, BD, he knows he's loved, but his school is on the hate list. Like I said, I respect it. I respect it. I do. I do. That's got some quality stuff right there. It'd be like if Angela was a Michigan fan. She's not, but I get it. I get it.
We never answered that, Lou Holtz.
I'm going to bring it up, yeah.
Okay. Super chat from Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. With all the rumors about Coach Marcus Freeman to the NFL earlier this year, I haven't heard much about Denbrock. How many more years do you think he will be here?
I have no idea. You haven't heard much about Denbrock because I think he's pretty happy with where he's at. I mean, he's got a son that's going to go into high school. I think Mike Denbrock became a dad much later in life, and I think puts a lot of emphasis on being a dad and being around for his son. My wife and I used to be members at a club in over in Granger, and we'd see him come in. He had just finished a round of golf with his kid, or he was going to go have dinner with his kid. And I think he understands that not the age his son is, like there's value in stability for his son. Does that mean he's going to stay for the next 4 years? I don't know. I don't know what offers may come up. I don't know how the offense is going to do, but that's why personally, I just don't see Mike Denbrock. There's a reason he came back to Notre Dame. It wasn't just because they gave him a lot of money. And so I'd be a little surprised if he left the next few years. But in this business, you can only be so surprised when coaches leave.
Yeah.
I don't know that Mike Denbrock is like dreamed of being an NFL coach because he's never done it. There's been plenty of opportunities where if he wanted to do that, he could have gone and done that. But I just think he knows he's got a pretty darn good gig. He makes really good money. He's making over $2 million as the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. He's living in a community where $2 million goes a very long way. You know what I mean? Like making that much kind of money in this area is like really, really, really good. And I think he's content. And obviously his wife has relationships here, I would assume, from the time that they lived here before. So I think he likes what Notre Dame's all about. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. That's why I don't think we hear his name a whole lot.
Yeah.
All right.
From John A1, what does it look like if Elijah Burris reaches his potential for 26 as a player, but he plays in the boundary?
I think the offense would look a little bit more like it did in 2015 when Chris Brown was playing in the boundary, where you're not just running goes and posts and digs all day with your boundary guy. Because when I say a go has counters to it. So like if I'm running the go route and the corner bails and it's cover 3, I'm stopping it, 12 or 15, depending on what they're teaching. So all those things are that, but you're going to still do those things, but you're also doing crossers and drags and slants and, motioning 3x1. You're going to put your tight end to the boundary at times and have him over in a 3x1, things that they did back in 2015 and in 2012. So I think that's what it would look like. You just have to adapt what you do to make sure his skill set's being utilized effectively. And I've seen Mike Denbrock do that at different places. And I think he would do that here if they felt that is where you had your best chance to be successful.
From Salty, is Georgia's biggest question whether their wide receivers will be a strength? They have Canyon, Taylor, and Wiley, plus highly rated freshmen. They don't have a good history at wide receiver. Is this their year for it?
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think they have a pretty decent history at wide receiver over the years. I mean, going back to Heinz Ward and AJ Green, I know Brock Bowers got a lot of love for what he did in 21 and 22, but Ladd McConkey was no bum on those teams either, man. Like he was a pretty good wide receiver. He's doing pretty well in the NFL right now, I believe. Isn't he a pretty decent NFL player?
He's good.
So yeah, he was a pretty good player, but they've had some. I'm not going to sit there and be they're they're Ohio State or LSU uh, good at receiver, but there's been plenty of good receivers at Georgia over the years, in my opinion. I mean, so I don't know that. I think the recent history, sure, but I mean Terrence Edwards back in the late '90s, early 2000s, AJ Green, Fred Gibson was another big tall guy, Muhammad Massaquoi, Reggie Brown, Hines Ward, Tavares King. So they've had some good receivers over the years. They've also had a lot of really good tight ends over the years. So no, I don't think receivers their biggest question. I think their offensive line's their biggest question, because a lot of times your strength is your question is, are you going to be good at the things that you value being what you build a program around? Ohio State needed to be elite at receiver because that's what they built their system around for several years. If you're trying to throw the ball as much as they threw the ball with Dwayne Haskins, you better be good at wide receiver, because if you're not, what are you doing here? Georgia still wants to run the football and dominate in the line of scrimmage. So if they can't, if their receivers are really good, but their offensive line struggles, they're going to do exactly what they've done the last couple of years, which is win the SEC and be a one and done in the postseason. If Georgia's solid at receiver, but they're big time in the trenches, they're going to win the SEC and be much more dangerous when they get to the postseason, because that fits what their game is going to be all about. And if Nate Frazier and Chancey Bowens are running behind a dominant offensive line, they're a problem for people. If Georgia's out there with Mike Bobo and Gunnar Stockton trying to win a perimeter battle with an okay offensive line and really good receivers, they're going to have some problems. They're going to be a one and done, barring a matchup against a team that's not that good. They get Bama in the last year's version of Bama in the quarters. Then they win that, and then they go to the semis and get smoked. So to me, it's they got to be great in the trenches, and I don't know that they are. But there's plenty of talent to be really good at wide receiver for what they do if they're great in the trenches. Agree or disagree, Mr. Trowbridge?
No, I agree. My biggest question for Georgia is tied between either can Mike Bobo be better than what he has been the last couple seasons, or can their defensive line generate a pass rush? Closely followed behind offensive line. Receiver, sure, but I've watched Georgia win titles with just a good receiver and a very, very, very elite tight end. I mean, they don't have to be Ohio State or LSU or Bama from back in the day at receiver to win a title.
Agree. Let's get to one from Patrick Earwood.
What is your feeling about Alabama, and what have you heard?
I mean, I've heard that the quarterback battle is still raging. I've heard that the offensive line is coming along. It's about it. It's about all I've heard. I think Austin Mack is got a shot to win the job at the beginning, which is something you and I have talked about. I don't be shocked if Austin Mack wins the job. If he does well, great. If he doesn't, then you've got Keelan Russell to turn to. That's about all I've heard. My feeling on Alabama is they have the talent to be a very decent, a very, very good team this year. Title contender? No. Get to the postseason and make some noise? Yes. But they can't just keep being a more talented version of what they've been. They have to change. And I don't know that he's willing to do that. They can't be a team that runs the ball for 105 yards a game. I don't care how good you are at wide receiver and quarterback. I don't. You're going to be limited as a program.
Yeah, my feelings on Alabama. I said this early in the offseason, and I'm staying consistent with it. I don't have them making the postseason. I think that it's going to be a disappointing year because of the level of talent that they have on their roster. I think their defensive coordinator, Kane Womack, is not the guy for the job. I don't see them being a disciplined unit. And then on offense, it's weird to say that the head coach at Alabama needs to run the ball more, but that's kind of where they're at. So that's how I feel about it. From J. Melvin, Brian, if Notre Dame wins a title, do you think Brian Kelly will come out and say, I paved the way for the title and all the players and recruiting because I got the program back and gave Coach Marcus Freeman a chance?
He's already saying it. I mean, he's already saying that. So if they win it all, he will definitely say that. He will say it a little bit differently, but yes, he will say that.
Yeah. From Mr. Rogers, what previous Notre Dame head coach would you rather see win a championship? Brian Kelly, Jerry Faust, or Bob Davie?
Jerry Faust, because Jerry Faust loved Notre Dame. And, I mean, Trev, I still remember first game I covered Notre Dame in 2010. I remember walking in and like, dude, that's Jerry Faust. And he was at every single home game that I can remember those next 2 years. And then as his health started failing more, he was around a lot less. But, I mean, people still refer to him as coach. I mean, he was loved by his players. A lot of Notre Dame fans liked him as a person. They just knew he was in way over his head as a head football coach at Notre Dame. He went from Moeller High School in Cincinnati to Notre Dame. But he loved Notre Dame. Loved Notre Dame. And after getting, I mean, he didn't get fired. Technically, he resigned. But even after his failed tenure in Notre Dame, he was still someone who rooted for Notre Dame, never said a bad word about Notre Dame, was around Notre Dame, loved Notre Dame. Coach Faust is a very beloved figure, even from people who admit he wasn't a very good head football coach. In regards to being able to win in a place like Notre Dame, cared about his players. I mean, I've never heard a player say a bad word about him other than just like, he had some little quirks. But Bob Davie did not love Notre Dame. Notre Dame was not a place he respected or cared about. Brian Kelly, same thing. I would have loved seeing Jerry Faust win a title, even though I wouldn't have really remembered it. But, it would have been great if that was his legacy as opposed to what it was.
Sure.
Yeah.
From Chips IBP, is this the best looking, quote, get off the bus team in the past 10 seasons for Notre Dame?
Yes. From a depth standpoint, look, Notre Dame had some really good-looking players getting off the bus in 2012. It just was about 5-6 deep, and then it stopped being that good-looking. You get Stephon Tuitt's first one off the bus, and then Lewis Nix, and then Manti, and then Capron Lewis Moore. And you're like, okay, what's this going to be? And then Zeke Mata, and then Tyler Eifert, and then it was gone over. Because like Zach Martin was a lot like Anthony Knapp. I don't want Anthony Knapp being the first one off the bus. He looks like he's 12 years old in the face. He's got a baby face. Zach had a little bit of that at Notre Dame. He's not tall and big, and he's not Quentin Nelson. He's just a great football player. And you know what I mean? Like, he's not a get off the bus guy. Chris Watt wasn't a get off the bus guy. Braxton Cave could lift a house, but he wasn't a get off the bus guy. You know what I mean? This team has like fourth string offensive linemen that look the part.
Here's where Notre Dame is at now at this point. There's a world where Micah Drescher and Jasper Scaife are the first guys off the bus. And he's like, yo, who are they? Are those tight ends? Are those young DNs? No, it's the kicker and the punter. Two freshmen, kicker, and punters. That's where Notre Dame is at. Yes. This is definitely the best looking get off the bus team. From Irish Dragon, since you're a baseball traditionalist, what do you think of spoofs like banana baseball?
From what little I've seen of them, I think it's awesome. It's like, listen, they're not pretending that, hey, we're reinventing baseball. They're the Harlem Globetrotters. I loved the NBA as a kid. Loved it. And I'm a basketball traditionalist. I loved it when basketball was running and passing and shooting and defense and all those things. But I loved the Globetrotters because they weren't pretending to be, we could go play the Celtics. And no, they were entertainment. They were there to raise money. They were there to entertain kids and do all those type of things. I had a cartoon about the Globetrotters when I was a kid. And I respect that, and they're having fun. And like a buddy of mine sent me a video. I think I said this on the show one time. A buddy of mine sent me a video he took his son to a Savannah Bananas game. And at the end of the game, they're singing worship music. Like, yes, please, but like, they don't pretend to be baseball purists. They're entertainment. And from what I've seen, it's entertaining, and I'm all for that. I'm all for that. And it's not like we're saying, hey, we're doing this because we want to show Major League Baseball what the potential is for that league if they're willing to adopt how we play the game. No, they're not doing that. Just like the Globetrotters didn't try to do that. There's a reason they played the Washington Generals every time and they knew they were going to win. You know what I mean? Like, it's entertainment. And so I'm all for that. I'm not one of those people like every time you play baseball, you have to play by this. No, Major League Baseball should be that way. College baseball should be a certain way. The Savannah Bananas are entertaining. It's something you take your kid to on a Saturday because it's way cheaper to do that. Well, actually, now I don't know that it is, but it's something you can do because they're coming to your community. Whereas maybe you can't go to a professional baseball game because they're too far away or whatever the reason may be. So I love things like that. Just same for the same reason I loved the Globetrotters when I was a kid. I loved them in that they were entertaining. I didn't like have a curly jersey in my room like I had the Larry Bird. You know what I mean? But like it was entertaining. I enjoyed watching the Globetrotters. But you knew what you were watching. You're watching
Yeah.
entertainment. This isn't real baseball. In that it's like wrestling's not real. Wrestling is very real for the guys that are wrestling. They're getting slammed, they're getting hit with chairs. The outcome may be predetermined, but they're doing it for entertainment, not because they're trying to pretend that this is no different than Olympics wrestling. And it's entertaining, and you respect it for what it is, and you enjoy it for what it is.
Agreed. Another one from Chips. Brian and Trevor, national title game on the line. 4th down, 1 second on the clock. Ball at the 15-yard line going in. Game in CJ Carr's hands. Who does CJ go to win the game?
Great question. Jaden Greathouse or Ian Premer? That would be my answer. Yeah, it'd be my answer.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'd go JG. I like that.
From the 15-yard line, yeah, that'd be my answer. You're wanting to go somebody that can go win a contested catch. You're not running a screen to Jordan Faison from the 15 and thinking he's going to score.
With 1 second left, that ball's going into the end zone.
Right. And I need somebody who can go up and make a play on it.
Yeah.
And that's two that I think can do that.
From Clay Murphy, if you had the chance to sit down with one legendary Irish coach, head coach, or position coach, who would it be and why?
It would be Lou Holtz, just because that was my guy growing up. That was my favorite coach. That was my coach growing up. That was the guy that I was introduced in Notre Dame. That's my coach, and he's the standard of my lifetime. All time, I mean, probably Newt Rockne. Yeah. I mean, if you know what I mean, like just what would be some of the like I wish he would have lived longer, so there could have been interviews after his career about what went into why you did what you did. You know what I mean? Like it's a great showman ahead of his time. I've said this before, like when people are all upset about the scoreboard, I was like, if those things were around in Newt Rockne's time, he'd have been the first program with field turf or a scoreboard or those type of things. He'd have been the first one to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what, after Coach Holtz, that's who it would be for me.
Love that. From T. Hannah Ozarks, assume all players perform how you expect, not hope players get drafted that you expect. Notre Dame wins a natty, no transfers in or out, or other major changes like coaches. What is Notre Dame's record next year?
Without looking at their schedule again, listen, I expect Notre Dame in 2027 to be a playoff team again. I think this team is in reload mode. Flat out. Ohio State, lost all those players from the 24 title team, and they still went out the next year and made the playoffs. That's my expectation is to be.
Yeah. To give you a rough ballpark here, T. Hannah, I'd probably say floor's 10-2, ceiling is 12-0.
Yep. Back in the playoffs.
From Beefeater, Jaden Daniels and Brendan Sorsby have done the impossible. They've united the country with their stupidity.
Agree with that. Listen, I would even say what's funny is Jaden Daniels even more so because LSU fans are also, for the most part, not happy about this. Or with Brendan Sorsby, you had Texas Tech fans running cover like crazy. Now, the reason why is because Brendan Sorsby can still impact this year's team and Jaden Daniels no longer can. But, yeah, for the most part, I agree. And that's hard to do.
Nothing brings people more together, whether we like it or dislike it. Nothing brings people more together than like mutual disdain for something.
Mm-hmm. Which is sad, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if you've ever worked in an office, you broke bread with people over the one coworker that nobody liked, like, or the job that you didn't like. I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep.
From Michael Kostrup, I've learned a ton about football scheme and tactics watching IB. Having never played organized football, where else can I learn the fundamentals to analyze the game better?
Well, just listen to people who talk about the X's and O's of the sport. That's one thing to do, whether it's podcasts or shows. There's a lot of good YouTube videos. I'll tell you one guy you follow on Twitter if you want to do that. I think he still puts videos up, but look up Jim McNally videos. He does a lot of stuff with the offensive line. There's also a guy named I don't know if he does videos anymore, but he used to. Duke Mayweather, I think is his name, that does a lot of O-line videos. There's a lot of guys out there like that put videos out. Find old coaching videos. Like there's some stuff from Sark back when he came back to Alabama after he'd been with the Falcons, and he's breaking down like RPOs and different things like that. It's a really good video. So there's a lot of stuff like that on YouTube that you can learn. And then there's guys that put out coaching videos and things like that. That's what I encourage you to do.
Yeah, agreed. From Matt Lee, have you, BD, and other local media had a chance to get the tour of the new Shields football facility yet?
We have not. We have not been invited to do that yet, no.
From Justin K, what role will Matt Jeffrey have this year?
He will play special teams at the very least, and he will be a guy that is in competition for a role in the two deep at wide receiver all season. Either he wins a spot like that out of fall camp, or he steps into that role should somebody get hurt or somebody falter a little bit in season. That's what I think his role will be. But he's definitely at least can help on special teams, but he's definitely legit pushing for a role.
Yeah.
I think Buck saw his twin there. That's why he's getting all fired up.
I think he did, dude. He's riled up.
Yeah. Like, hey, is that me? Yeah.
He wants a screen time.
That's right.
From Jay Melvin, Brian, why doesn't Notre Dame just do this? Schedule 6 opponents of bad P4 teams and G5 teams, along with the 6 ACC games, get into the postseason with one of the best rosters and staffs, and then dominate.
Because you're assuming they'd still dominate, number one. But even then, that's to intentionally do this is disrespectful to Notre Dame, its fan base, its players, and its tradition. So I would not support that at all. I think that is looking for an easy way out. That is the exact opposite of what Notre Dame is about, in my opinion. It's the exact opposite of what being a competitor is about. It's the exact opposite of the tradition that led you to where you are. Your last great coach went through a stretch over 2 years where he beat like 7 top 5 teams on his way to being a dominant program. I don't want to become what I despise simply to achieve an objective like winning. If I have to become what I despise in order to win, then maybe winning isn't something that I should covet. And so, no, I don't believe this is something that Notre Dame should do, where they seek to do that. There are going to be years where Notre Dame's schedule is softer, like this year, for reasons outside of their control. USC dropping them. Well, okay, they replaced them with BYU. That's what they should do. It's not Notre Dame's fault that Stanford's not what they used to be. It's not Notre Dame's fault in 24 that Florida State isn't what they're used to be. It's not Notre Dame's fault that Michigan State isn't what they were under Mark D'Antonio. I mean, if Michigan State was as good as they were under Mark D'Antonio and Wisconsin was as good as they were back when Notre Dame signed this game, where they were coming off of a Big Ten title game appearance, if Purdue was what they were during the Joe Tiller era, if North Carolina was what they were during the Mac Brown era, even the most recent Mac Brown era, they were a 7-9 win caliber team, putting guys like Sam Howell and Javonte Williams and Michael Carter and Joshua Downs and guys like that in the NFL. If all those things were still true, Trev, we'd be having a different conversation about Notre Dame's schedule. The intention wasn't to put a weak schedule together. USC's intention was to weaken their schedule. Penn State's schedule, Indiana's schedule were intentionally weakened as much as they could be. And if you believe something is wrong, I don't believe you should then do that, even if it means you'll achieve a certain objective. Because I'd love to have $1 million, but I'm not going to go rob a bank to do it because that's not right. I'm going to work my tail off to build my business up and my brand up enough to maybe I can make that someday. I'm not even close to that. Nowhere close. And I'm not going to. And I'm just making the point that, like, I'd love to buy my wife a bigger house and a new car and to do this and to buy a home for my parents and to do this and do all that. And, give my sister some, hey, here's some money to start a scholarship fund for all your kids or whatever. I mean, there's loads of things I'd love to do. But I'm not willing to do things that I believe are wrong to become that. Because then winning no longer has the same joy. There's not the same pride in winning if I have to sell my soul to do it. And that's what this would be. So why doesn't Notre Dame do that? Because it's Notre Dame. And when Notre Dame starts doing that to win, they no longer are Notre Dame. They're Notre Dame in name only. And I would cease being a supporter of the program. It would simply become, this is the team that I cover. That's it. Because the team that I grew up rooting for is dead. And it's become this. Now, I know not everybody feels that way. Some of y'all are like, I don't care who they play. If it's done intentionally, that's the thing. If it's done intentionally, if they happen to play a weak schedule because it kind of worked out that way, that's not their fault. 2021 was a terrible schedule. But who thought a schedule that had Wisconsin, Florida State on the road, USC, Stanford, you look at the different teams that Notre Dame played in 2021, like there's a time where Notre Dame didn't intentionally make a weak schedule in 2021. It just turned out that way because Florida State was down, Cincinnati was down, Virginia Tech was down, USC was down, North Carolina was down, Georgia Tech was down, Stanford was down. It's just the way that it was. So if you do it intentionally, then you cease being the program that I grew up writing for. And then you should then at that point in time get rid of the name Fighting Irish because you are not the Fighting Irish anymore. You're just whatever. I don't even care what change your name to. It's not that. The Notre Dame Easy Riders, something like that. Easy Path Seekers, but you're not the Fighting Irish anymore. And I don't want to win that bad. I don't want to win by doing it the wrong. I don't want to win by doing what Michigan did in 2023. I don't want to win that way. And I know I'm probably in the minority here because a lot of people, I don't care, just go win. Okay, that's fine. You do you. But I will not support that. Would never support that.
I think that's fair.
Do you disagree?
No, I don't want Notre Dame to cheat to win a title.
Not cheat, but do this.
No, I don't think they should do that. I mean, look, we talk about schedules a lot on this show. Like, you can't control the outlook of what a program is in 5 years.
Right.
So I don't want Notre Dame to do this. And you can't control when a team is good. You can't control when a team is bad. You can control how you handle business. And going back to what Notre Dame did in 2025, I hate what the playoff committee did, but Notre Dame didn't handle business.
Yep.
And so I don't think that the answer to that should be just schedule teams that suck. Notre Dame as is a different beast entirely. If they win a title, people are going to poke holes. They're going to talk about, what they did in the regular season. I don't want to give more ammunition to that argument. Like, people already are talking about how this is a weak schedule and they're going to make the postseason and get a bye by default because they play a bunch of JV teams at Miami. Why would you want to give more fuel to that? Because then we're just going to get in this revolving door of, we're going to get mailbag questions about Brian, Notre Dame went out and won a title, but we know how good this team is. So why is the national media doing that? It's because we were lobbying for Notre Dame to schedule a bunch of teams that suck. It's it's just this ever nonstop revolving door of, I've gone through and said it. What is one of the reasons why we look back on the 2012 season with such fond memories outside of just going undefeated? That wasn't Notre Dame's first undefeated season ever in program history. It's because on the way to doing that, they beat Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma on the road, Navy, Miami,
Stanford, USC,
Stanford, Pitt,
right.
All of the teams that Notre Dame has built up a reputation of forming rivalries with to varying degrees over the years. I don't want that to be replaced with Kennesaw State, Kent State, Bowling Green, Wake Forest, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. That would carry no weight with me. So
I also reject this notion from Jay Melvin. So you're not a fan of the work smarter, not harder mentality, Brian. That is such a false correlation. It's just almost beyond response. But that has nothing to do with what we just said. Working smarter, first of all, you should do both. You should work smart and work hard. Trev and I talk about this all the time. I've never said to you, Trev, if you don't put in a good 9-10 hours a day, you're not doing this job right. I've never said that to you. Do I demand that you work smart and hard? Yeah. It's not about volume. You should challenge yourself every day. And creating an easier path. Hey, I'm going to write these 10 articles because they're easy to do and they're going to get clickbait and they're going to get a lot of clicks, but they're garbage and they don't build up our brand or show any respect for our fan base. It doesn't mean that you're better. It means you took an easier path. And you did it. You wrote like you could go write a bunch of, Trev starts putting out a bunch of AI articles that get clicked. Is that what you guys want? So that's a terrible, terrible correlation, Jay Melvin. Terrible. Creating an easier path for yourself to game the system is not working smarter.
From MBDT Realty, if Notre Dame wins the Natty, do they take their foot off the pedal and not go for another?
Oh no, they as an institution they would want another one, 100%.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, hey, we've won. Let's feel good. We don't got to go out and have the most expensive roster next year. Let's cut back on what we spent. We're making more money. I mean, there's things like that they could do that would mean that. I just don't think that's what they would do. Yeah, I don't think that's what they do. I think we had a super chat pop up from Kenneth Herney, 1791.
Appreciate the super chat. I really got into Notre Dame football in 2024. If you could explain to me the feeling of Notre Dame football in the before that, what would it be?
Well, it depends on what before that we're talking about. Trev, let you describe your before that, and then I'll describe mine.
Well, let's see. Before 2020, it's kind of like it would be the best way that I could make the analogy of Notre Dame football prior to 2024 would be like if you woke up as a little kid every single day of the year leading up to December 25th and then Santa never came.
That's a great analogy. I love that.
Like that would be like all year. It's just this buildup of like, hey, I've been a really good kid this year. Like we're putting up the Christmas tree. It's snowing outside. Like this is about to be fantastic. And then you wake up the next day and they're like, sorry, you didn't show up. And then depending on how, excuse me, I almost cursed, depending on how bad the year was, you would either find out that Santa didn't come on December 24th or on September 5th. And depending on how, like I found out that Santa wasn't coming in 2007, sticking with this analogy, on January 2nd. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it just depending on the year. It's 2012. I found out on December 24th at 11:55 p.m. at night.
Right.
You know, like that's how it would be. That's how I would describe it.
That's a great analogy. I won't even try to match that. But so my experience with Notre Dame growing up was Notre Dame. My first remote memory of Notre Dame was 87. But my first like real memories were like, okay, I was really a fan was 88. And it was from the beginning of the year. It was the Michigan night game. It was meeting Miami, beating USC, all of it. I've shared went over to my friend Jameson Jennings' house. He had one of those old school satellite TVs with the giant satellite in the backyard. And they were the big old TVs and watching Notre Dame play USC, and it was number 1 Notre Dame against number 2 USC. Rodney Peete, I think Mark Carey was on that team like that. I mean, that was 1 versus 2. Winner gets a shot, is going to be playing for the national championship in the postseason. And I remember that. And it was just, they were that team and they beat Miami, who at the time was like, they weren't even Bama. They were like, everyone hated them except them. Like they were the true bad boys of the sport. They were the team that everybody loved to hate. And not like Notre Dame, but like, it was like, like people can get all in their feelings about the Catholics versus convicts, but there was a reason that like struck such a chord with people because of how Miami was back then. And there was also some of it was jealousy because of how dominant they were. I mean, in Miami back then, they would play. I mean, you think about it, Miami played Michigan and Michigan State before they played Notre Dame. They'd go out west and play BYU when BYU was good. They played Marshall Faulk when San Diego State, San Diego State with Marshall Faulk. I mean, they would play Washington. They would go anywhere and play anybody, and they'd play Oklahoma in the regular season, back when Oklahoma was a big-time program. And then, of course, they played Florida State, and Florida would not play them. Florida was afraid to play Miami back in the – I mean, they were the – they were the dude that if you saw them in a dark alley, you kept walking. You know what I'm saying? Like if they were coming down the street, you walked to the other side of the street. They were the bad boys of the sport. And Notre Dame at that time, I mean, the only team that could beat them was Notre Dame for that short stretch. You know, Notre Dame beat them in 88. Miami beat them in 89. Notre Dame beat them in 90. Both years cost Miami a championship. And so, like, that's what I grew up on. Like, they were the team that beat Bama. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and could go toe-to-toe with them, wasn't afraid of them and that kind of thing. And then, of course, 93, they beat Florida State, who was at the time had kind of emerged as like the premier team in the country. At that time, you know, they beat, you know, Steve Spurrier in Florida in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, the only New Year's Six Bowl I remember losing, because I don't remember the Cotton Bowl after 87. You know, in 88, they won the Fiesta Bowl. In 89, they won the Orange Bowl, beat number one Colorado. The next year, they lost the Orange Bowl to number one Colorado by a point. The next year, they beat Florida in the Sugar Bowl. The next year, they beat Texas A&M in the Cotton Bowl. The next year, they beat Texas A&M again in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, New Year's Six games are just something Notre Dame won. That's just kind of what it was. And they were that team back then. And they were tough and hard-nosed and coached well, and they had speed and they had toughness, and they were just, I mean, they were putting tons of dudes in the NFL. And as I mentioned, the 92 team had, I think, like 9 first-round draft picks on it. I mean, it was crazy how much talent that those teams had. And then that leads to what followed. And the Bob Davie disappointing era, and then the Ty Willingham disaster, which right in between that was the George O'Leary debacle, where they hire him and then have to basically rescind the hire because he lied about his resume. And then, you know, Charlie Weiss brings us such hope. And you use the Christmas analogy is so much better than the Charlie Brown analogy. That was because the thing I love about it is the Charlie Brown thing is just, it's a quick thing, you know, the ball and then they pull it in front. And that's what the analogy going to use. But yours, because it's like this anticipation all year to that. And then, you know, Santa doesn't either come, or he comes and he leaves you like, you know, a lump of coal and a bunch of things you don't want. You know, he's that Halloween, you know, house where you go there and they give you like an apple. You know, and it's like an old warm apple with, you know, soft spots all over it. Or he gives you like a toothbrush or something like that. You're like, what? You know, like that's such a great analogy, Trev. But so like I grew up expecting Notre Dame to be great because of what I lived. Trev grew up expecting Notre Dame to be great because of what he was told Notre Dame used to be like or was supposed to be like, but had never really experienced. So there's a level of, is this just kind of what it is? And so now for me, this is what I remember. For Trevor, it's like, so this is what it's supposed to feel like. And so that's kind of what it was like for us. And it was a decades-long reorienting of the fan base to try to convince people that Notre Dame shouldn't expect to be what it is anymore. And that's the greatest accomplishment. If Marcus Freeman never wins a championship, the one thing that we will all look back on and evaluate him on is he is the coach that reminded Notre Dame fans that they should no longer accept secondary status in the sport.
Yeah.
To not buy the excuses that every coach before him left. That's what he's done. If it doesn't result in a championship for him, but the guy that replaces him wins one, we will genuinely look back and say he played a role in that. And if he wins one, we'll say it's because he didn't accept the lies that his predecessors tried to all tell us so they could feel better about their inability to do it. Don't settle for we have to do it this way. No, we're going to do it this way. We're going to go out and get the best players. We're not going to have to win with smart, you know, under-athletic, undersized, try-hard kids. No, we're going to go out and get elite athletes who also are smart, intelligent football players because they exist. We watched one of them win a Heisman and beat Notre Dame in 2005. So it can be done. And you don't have to accept you don't have to accept, well, you just can't do this because you're Notre Dame. You now know what it's like to expect it because you're Notre Dame in a completely opposite way. And that's what it was like growing up as a Notre Dame fan for me. That's what it was like before Marcus Freeman, before Brian Kelly. That's what it was like in the Lou Holtz era. And unfortunately, people in your age group didn't get to experience that. You only heard about it. Now you know what it's like. And hopefully you guys get a chance to experience that other part that we got to experience, people my age and older, that you didn't, which is what it feels like to watch Notre Dame win a championship. Hopefully you do.
Yeah. Yeah. From Raymond Harton, what would shock you more, Texas at 8-4 or IU at 8-4?
IU at 8-4 because their schedule's way softer than Texas. Texas should actually be a decent team and be 8-4. If Indiana goes 8-4, they've collapsed. I mean, that means they lost to literally. If we said it earlier, if Texas goes 8-4, there's at least 2 or 3 really good wins on their schedule. If Indiana goes 8-4, they have 0 good wins. If Indiana goes 9-3, they probably have 0 good wins on the season.
Yeah,
8-4, they have none. Yeah. Yep.
From Gavin KGD, I'm behind 3+ hours, so forgive me if this has already been asked. From what you've observed at practice, what grade would you give Coach Sider for his coaching from top to bottom in the running back room?
I mean, it's still early, but it's hard for me to do anything other than an A. He's recruited an elite level. His players are fundamentally sound. I think he's adapted to the system and what's expected of his players coming into the system. It's hard for me to do anything other than an A. I think his mindset, his interaction with the players is different this year because he's already established kind of what I want. I don't give him an A. He replaced an A coach and he's coached like an A coach. That's kind of what you want. Now, this is with us not knowing how's he going to use the depth chart in the season. That's the only potential concern I have is that you don't use the depth chart. But up to this point in time, Trev, I have no complaints about the job J1 Sider's done. I had some issues with how he conducted himself when he first got the job and some things he had said about the previous coach, which were unnecessary. I think he quickly worked past that and has done an excellent job so far at Notre Dame.
Agreed.
Excellent job.
From ND Wine and Cheese, if Notre Dame wins it all this year, how realistic does winning an additional 1 to 2 titles in the next 5 years become, meaning a total of 2 to 3 titles anywhere from 26 through 30?
It's very realistic. I mean, look, if Notre Dame wins a title this year, their best recruiting class they've ever had will be freshmen on this team, and their second best recruiting class of the last 30 years aren't even on campus yet. So I think it's very fair to expect another one. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen. I mean, Ohio State was never not good from 2015 to 2023. They were really good every year, and they'd never won a title. It took them, 11 seasons or 10 following seasons before they won another title. They were still very good, but you certainly think that there was a lot of years they were capable of winning one. And I think in a 12-team playoff, I think Ohio State is back-to-back champs if there's a 12-team playoff back in Urban Meyer's tenure. I think if Ohio State in 2015 made it to a 12-team playoff, they absolutely win the title that year. I think if you think 2024 pissed off Ohio State was really good, what do you think 2015 pissed off Ohio State team would have done? Well, Notre Dame fans know what it would look like. You know what I mean? And they would have wreaked havoc on the college football playoff that year. I wholeheartedly believe that. But they didn't because it was a different era back then. But I think it's certainly realistic to expect that they'll have a great shot to win another one. Because recruiting's not going to go down after they win a title, assuming Marcus Freeman stays. It's not going to get harder to bring in top recruits if he goes down. He's going to have more money to spend. That's just the nature of it. So, yeah, I would certainly go there.
For sure. Super chat from Rob Tidoff. Brian, if Gillette doesn't go wide right in 1988, but Michigan, Notre Dame, Miami, West Virginia, and Florida State all finish with one loss, who wins the title?
It's probably still Notre Dame because Notre Dame would have beat Miami. I think Notre Dame would have been number one. The thing with Miami in if let's say Miami wins that game or Michigan wins that game, let me see here real quick. I thought Michigan had a tie that year. I could be wrong. Just give me a second. Yeah, they They had a tie that year also. So let's say they beat Notre Dame. The next week they lose to Miami, and Notre Dame beats Miami. So the whole head-to-head thing where, Michigan beat Notre Dame and then Notre Dame beat Miami, I think they all kind of negate each other. And then Miami beat Florida State and all that kind of stuff. West Virginia's out. Florida State would have been out because they would have been behind. It would have been one of those top three. And the fact that Michigan tied an unranked Iowa team that year, I think would have dropped them below Notre Dame and Miami, and then Notre Dame still would have had to head-to-head over Miami. So I think Notre Dame would have still won it all that year. Good question. All right, last couple here, Trev. Let's get to here we go.
From Blue Lobster, word is BYU is planning on going with a lot of 12 personnel schemes. What is Notre Dame's best defensive alignment to negate?
They'll do. Honestly, we've seen it. That's a good question. We've seen that. They did that last year when teams go 12 personnel. They'd go to a 4-3 personnel. So they'd put Kingston, Villiam-Moss on the field. They'd keep Drake, keep either Jaden Osbury or Jalen Sneed at will, depending on whose turn it was in the rotation at will. And then they put Kingston in the game. And they do different fronts and things like that out of that. But that's really what you do is you match their personnel with bigger personnel. The reason Notre Dame can do that is because they have linebackers that can cover now. You can put Kingston matched up against a tight end. You can put Jaden Osbury on a tight end. You can put your safeties on a tight end and handle if one of those tight ends can cover, like BYU will have in Walker Lyons, who I believe scored USC's first touchdown last year against Notre Dame. Isn't he the one that beat Adon Shuler on the fade route?
I don't remember if it was him or Lake McCree.
I thought it was him. I'll go look it up real quick. But that's kind of where I'm at, Trev. I think you have personnel that's built to handle that, and you've shown that you have personnel to handle that, and you've used it in the past, and it's been pretty successful with that. Yeah, you're right. It was Lake McCree. You were correct. So that's how I would handle it, Trev. It's do what you've done in the past against 12 personnel, and what's worked out really well.
Yeah, I would either say that or put in Luke Talich at nickel. One of those two. But I think that I think it'll be one of those things where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I would just sub in one of Kingston or Sneed for the nickel and then just run with 4-3 base. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Last two, and then we'll get out of here.
From Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts, across all sports, what historical event or team would you want a movie to be made about that hasn't been made yet?
Oh, man. There's so many good options. Oh, gosh, Trev. What is something? Well, I mean, you couldn't make a movie about the Dream Team. It would just be impossible. You got to do a documentary, which they've done. I don't know that you could do that. Let's see here. What's a movie that could be made?
I mean, honestly, Indiana, like that turnaround, like I could see them making a movie about that.
Yeah. Movie or historical event or team. And when you say historical event, I'm assuming he means sports. If you're not talking about sport, I think I'm shocked at how few movies have been made about the Revolutionary War. Shocked. There are so many movies that could be made about different events of the Revolutionary War that I can't believe they haven't tapped into that. And I think coming into the 250th anniversary, I'm even more shocked that they didn't even tap into the potential of the feeling of patriotism of people who would want to even just go see that movie just to make money. There's so many great stories that we could see from that. But if you're talking sports historical event, no, did they make a movie? Have they made a movie about Jesse Owens and the Olympics where he basically went to Germany in front of Nazi Germany and just like dominated?
I'm not sure.
Like that would be one I would consider. Here's a. I don't know if they've done this. Jim Thorpe would be you could make a great historical movie about Jim Thorpe. Jim Brown, like a movie about Jim Brown, like something about, I think because they've had some good movies about like Ernie. They had a movie about Ernie Davis that was really, really well done. That could be one. I mean, there's Notre Dame. There could be some Notre Dame ones. But they've made a lot of those, right? They've made Newt Rockne. They've made obviously Rudy. But there's some things you could potentially do there. Yeah, there's some good ones, but a lot of those like Olympic stuff and Munich. I think they made a movie about Munich in 1976, I believe. Correct? Or I
Yeah.
know there was something about the
I think it
afterwards,
might
but
be called Munich, like the
yeah,
movie.
but that was after. It wasn't that about what happened afterwards, or was that actually what happened
Oh,
during?
I don't know. I never saw it.
Yeah,
I
that I
just
don't remember, but yeah, I think there's something about like that's a, a tragic situation. If a movie hasn't been made about it, would be an interesting one to make, especially with kind of where the world is trending right now. I think it'd be good to remind people of where that leads to. So let me see here. I mean, sporting. I mean, there's lots of football stuff. I would love to see a movie made about like the founding of the NFL.
mm,
Like, I heard that. I heard Air was really good. Did you see
yeah,
that? Was
that
that
is a
good? Because I've
very
been
good
thinking about
movie.
maybe watching it. But like things like that, the founding of something, I think could be really good movies. So like the founding of like there had to be a lot of crazy stories about that.
Hmm.
I think could be really, really well done. Um, yeah, there's so many good options. So many good options. Let's wrap up, Trev, with this question from Father J Pop.
Malik Washington, the quarterback from Maryland, jumps in the portal after the year. Does Notre Dame entertain bringing him in versus the guys in the room, or is Notre Dame done with the portal? Does he consider Notre Dame in this scenario?
It all depends on how well Teddy Gerard and Noah Grubbs. Well, first of all, CJ Carr has to go pro. We're assuming that. Then it comes down to how did Teddy Gerard and Noah Grubbs develop throughout the season? If Notre Dame is confident that one of those two is ready to go into the spring and summer maybe and win the job and do the job, then I think Notre Dame continues down this path. But Notre Dame has never said we'll never go to the portal again for quarterback. It's more about we think we're recruiting well enough that we can develop our own quarterbacks. But if you get to a situation where, let's say that something happens and heaven forbid one of the freshmen has a late season injury like Will Hammond had, you know, uh, Achilles, knee, shoulder, something like that. I don't care how comfortable you are. And the one quarterback, you're going to need to go to the portal. And if you're going to go to the portal, you might as well go to the portal for somebody that can start and play for you. But if you feel both of those guys are truly ready, like Kenny and CJ were ready to go compete for that job in 2024, then I think Notre Dame goes to the portal for more of a veteran depth presence to have in the room, a guy that understands he's not going to start, for whatever reason, but is willing to do his part, be a mentor to two young players. That's what I think Notre Dame would do. If they're not confident that those young players are capable to do that, I don't think Notre Dame would hesitate to go out there into the portal and get the right guy. And Malik Washington would be near the top of my list of those guys that I would want to vet. You need to find out what's his leadership like. What's his, can he, what's his ability to process? How is he with the playbook? Or is he just a really talented guy? You don't know the answers to those questions. But if you do your due diligence and you think he checks all those boxes, you guys know I'm super high on Malik Washington. I would absolutely entertain that idea. And honestly, even if those guys develop, I'd still entertain that idea. There comes a point in time, Trevor, where a guy's just too good not to pass up. He's too good to pass up, I should say. Like, yeah, I love what these kids are doing, but that guy is a dog. You know what I mean? And we're going to be a hard team to beat if that kid,
Yeah, I don't. Marcus Freeman, he has not struck me as somebody who has like a fine line of principle with the transfer portal. If there's a player out there that can go help Notre Dame win games, I think he would do his due diligence and see if they're a culture fit, if they're an academic fit, if they're a fit with the team, all those things. I don't think it's as simple as like, I don't think after they got both Noah Grubbs and Teddy Gerard in the 26 class and then got a commitment from Champ Mons in the 27 class, I don't think there was ever moments like, and now we're just done with the portal. If they're ready, great. If not, you have to be able to, like, that's what I think has made Marcus Freeman so great is how well he's navigated this new day and age of college football. Because then you'll have some quarterbacks or you'll have some head coaches that'll go to the portal no matter what. Then
mm-hmm.
you'll have other head coaches like Dabo Swinney who are like, I want no part of it. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you got to do both, and you don't need a
You
cash
may
machine
like
in your
you may like
backyard to
this
do
guy,
it.
but Malik Washington would do some things for you. You know what I mean? Like you got to be smart. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yep.
Well, folks, that is going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends
4
over.
hours of great questions. Pat yourselves on the back, chat. You guys did a tremendous job today. Great
Absolutely.
questions. And we didn't even get to them all.
Guys are going live tonight on IB Nation Sports Beat here in about an hour, so tune into them. Brian and I will be back on Monday of next week. The availability of buy-sell hold is starting to dwindle, which is sad, but it's also good. That means the season's right around the corner. So get your buy-sell hold submissions in over the weekend. On your way out of this show, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Have a fun and safe weekend. And until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.